Welcome, fellow wanderer of the endless seas, to an extraordinary chronicle that spans the breadth of devil fruit power across the Grand Line and beyond. Tonight, we delve into the complete catalogue of these mystical treasures, from the humblest paramecia to the legendary mythical zoans that reshape reality itself. Each fruit carries within it stories of ambition, sacrifice, and the endless human pursuit of power beyond mortal limitations. So settle in. Let the gentle rhythm of ocean waves carry you into peaceful slumber as we explore every known devil fruit power, their wielders, and the legends they've forged across the world of One Piece. In the vast expanse of the Grand Line, where islands drift like scattered dreams upon currents that defy all earthly logic, there exist treasures more precious than gold, more coveted than any crown, and more dangerous than the mightiest of sea kings. These are the devil fruits, mystical treasures born from forces so ancient that their origins have been lost to the endless march of centuries, leaving behind only whispers of their true nature, echoing through the folklore of every nation touched by the sea. The very existence of these fruits challenges everything that mortals believe they understand about the natural order of the world. Each one appears as an ordinary piece of produce, their surfaces marked by distinctive spiral patterns that seem to writhe and dance when observed too closely, as if the power contained within were trying to escape its fleshy prison. Yet to consume even a single bite is to forever alter the fundamental nature of one's existence, trading the sea's embrace for abilities that transcend the boundaries of human limitation. The curse that accompanies this transformation is as absolute as it is mysterious. Those who partake of devil fruit power find themselves forever rejected by the sea that connects all lands, their bodies becoming heavy as hammers the moment they touch salt water. This is no mere inconvenience in a world where oceans stretch between every destination, where the ability to swim might mean the difference between life and death during the countless storms that rage across these treacherous waters. It is a fundamental severing of the connection between human and nature, a price that speaks to the cosmic significance of the power being granted. Yet for all the mystery that shrouds their origins, devil fruits can be understood through three distinct categories, each representing a different approach to transcending mortal limitations. The paramecia fruits, most common among the three types, grant their users abilities that defy physical law while maintaining their fundamentally human nature. These powers range from the seemingly simple to the utterly reality-bending, united only by their tendency to operate outside the conventional understanding of what flesh and blood should be capable of achieving. The story of the Gomu Gomu no Mi serves as perhaps the perfect introduction to both the wonder and the complexity that defines devil fruit power. For years, this fruit was believed to grant nothing more than the ability to stretch one's body like rubber. Useful certainly, but hardly the stuff of legend. Monkey D. Luffy consumed it as a child with the casual disregard for consequence that characterizes all his most life-changing decisions, transforming his body into something that could bounce cannonballs and stretch impossible distances, while maintaining the cheerful simplicity that had always defined his approach to the world. Yet the truth that emerged during his battle with Kaido revealed layers of deception that had been maintained for over 800 years. The Gomu Gomu no Mi was, in fact, the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, a mythical Zoan fruit that connected its user to a legendary figure known as the Sun God, a being who represented freedom itself, made manifest. The world government had spent centuries hunting this particular fruit, understanding that its awakening could pose an existential threat to their carefully maintained system of control. The awakening of Gear 5th during Luffy's final confrontation with the strongest creature in the world demonstrated power that transcended every previously understood limitation of devil fruit abilities. Reality itself became malleable in the hands of someone who had achieved perfect synchronization with his fruit's true nature, allowing him to transform his surroundings into rubber, catch lightning bolts with bare hands, and operate according to principles that seemed borrowed from the most absurd cartoons rather than the brutal logic of combat. This transformation revealed something fundamental about the nature of devil fruit power, that these abilities are not merely tools to be wielded, but extensions of the user's very soul, growing stronger and more versatile as the wielder's understanding of themselves deepens. The rubber boy, who had once been limited to stretching his arms and legs, had become something approaching a force of nature, yet his essential character remained unchanged. The power had not corrupted him, but rather provided a perfect outlet for the joy and freedom that had always burned within his heart. The Gura Gura no Mi, wielded by Edward Newgate, demonstrates how paramecia abilities can reshape entire environments when placed in the hands of someone who understands their full potential. Whitebeard's Tremor fruit granted him the power to create vibrations and earthquakes, abilities that earned him recognition as the man with the power to destroy the world itself. During the war at Marineford, his grief and rage manifested as literal cracks in the air, fissures in reality itself that sent shockwaves across the battlefield and demonstrated why he had been considered the strongest man alive. The philosophical implications of such power weighed heavily on Whitebeard throughout his life. The knowledge that his emotions could trigger tsunamis and level islands, creating a burden of responsibility that few could comprehend. His restraint in the use of these abilities spoke to wisdom accumulated through decades of understanding that strength without control was merely destruction. That true power lay not in the ability to break things, but in choosing what was worth preserving. Trafalgar Law's Opope no Mi represents perhaps the most versatile paramecia ability ever recorded, granting its user the ability to create spherical zones within which the normal laws of physics cease to apply. Within these rooms, Law could separate objects and people without causing harm, teleport matter instantly across distances, and even swap the positions of souls within bodies. The surgical precision required to use these abilities effectively reflected Law's medical background, but the creative applications he developed during combat situations demonstrated how devil fruit powers could evolve far beyond their obvious applications. The ultimate technique of the Opope no Mi, the perpetual youth surgery, carried implications that extended far beyond individual combat effectiveness. This procedure could grant immortality to another person at the cost of the user's life, creating a moral dilemma that spoke to the deepest questions about the value of existence and the price of eternal life. The world government's willingness to pay 5 billion berries for this fruit alone demonstrated their understanding of how certain abilities could reshape the fundamental nature of human civilization. Don Quixote do Flamingo's Ito Ito no Mi showcased how even seemingly simple concepts could become terrifyingly versatile in the hands of someone with sufficient creativity and moral flexibility. His string fruit allowed him to create and manipulate threads so fine they were nearly invisible, yet strong enough to slice through buildings and control human bodies like marionettes. The psychological horror of watching friends and family members dance according to an enemy's will, their bodies betraying them while their minds remained helplessly aware, created a form of torture that went far beyond mere physical pain. The birdcage technique that Doflamingo deployed over Dressrosa represented the pinnacle of his fruit's destructive potential, a dome of cutting strings that slowly contracted to ensure the death of everyone trapped within. This ability served as both practical weapon and psychological torture device, forcing entire populations to witness their approaching doom while being powerless to escape it. The technique's seemingly unbreakable nature challenged conventional understanding of what strings should be capable of withstanding, suggesting that devil fruit abilities could transcend the physical properties of the materials they mimicked. Charlotte Linlin's Soru Soru no Mi granted her dominion over souls themselves, the ability to manipulate the very essence of life and consciousness in ways that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of existence. Her power to extract years of life from those who feared her, condensing this stolen time into homies that gained independent consciousness, created a form of slavery that operated on metaphysical rather than merely physical levels. The moral implications of such power were staggering, raising questions about whether consciousness could truly be owned, whether fear could justify the theft of life itself, and what it meant to create beings whose entire existence was predicated on serving their creator's will. The homies that populated Totoland served as constant reminders of Big Mom's ability to blur the lines between life and death, creation and destruction, love and tyranny. Kazuki Toki's Toki Toki no Mi provided perhaps the most philosophically complex paramecia ability recorded in history, granting its user the power to travel forward through time while making return journeys impossible. This one-way temporal manipulation created opportunities for hope and planning that transcended normal human limitations, allowing important individuals to skip ahead through periods of danger or preparation to reach moments when their presence could make a difference. The sacrifice inherent in using such power spoke to depths of maternal love and revolutionary commitment that few could comprehend. Each journey forward was also a journey away from everything and everyone the user had known, a permanent severing of connections that could never be restored. Toki's final leap through time, sending her husband's retainers 20 years into the future to fulfill prophecies of liberation, demonstrated how temporal manipulation could serve purposes larger than individual survival or advantage. Suga's Hobi Hobi no Mi represented perhaps the most terrifying paramecia ability in terms of its implications for individual identity and collective memory. Her Hobby Hobby fruit could transform anyone she touched into a toy, while simultaneously erasing all memory of that person's previous existence from the minds of everyone who had known them. This dual effect created a form of death that transcended physical destruction to encompass complete erasure from history itself. The victims of this power retained their consciousness and memories while being trapped in toy bodies, forced to watch as their loved ones forgot their existence entirely. The psychological horror of such a fate exceeded even physical torture, creating a form of living death that challenged basic assumptions about what it meant to exist and be remembered. The fact that this incredible power was wielded by someone who appeared to be a child added layers of tragic irony that spoke to the complex relationship between appearance and reality in the world of devil fruits. The variety and complexity of paramecia abilities demonstrate how these fruits serve as expressions of human potential itself, each one representing a different approach to transcending natural limitation, while revealing something fundamental about its user's deepest desires and fears. The simple act of consuming one of these mysterious fruits creates a bond between power and personality that grows stronger over time, eventually reaching states of awakening where the boundary between user and ability begins to dissolve entirely. The rarity hierarchy that governs devil fruit classification speaks to more than mere statistical distribution. It reflects the cosmic significance of different types of power and their relationship to the forces that shape the power world's hidden history. Common paramecia fruits might grant useful abilities that enhance normal human capabilities, while the legendary mythical zoans connect their users to gods and legends whose influence still echoes through the present day. Understanding devil fruits requires accepting that they operate according to rules that transcend normal physics and logic, existing as bridges between the mundane world of everyday experience and realms of possibility that most mortals can barely imagine. They represent proof that the universe contains forces far greater than human comprehension, powers that can elevate individuals beyond their limitations, while demanding prices that often exceed the user's initial understanding of what they were agreeing to pay. The relationship between Devil Fruit user and ability evolves throughout the wielder's life, growing more intimate and more powerful as understanding deepens and boundaries blur. The greatest users learn to think not in terms of what their fruit can do for them, but in terms of what they can become when they stop fighting their power and start embracing it as a fundamental aspect of their identity. This journey toward integration and awakening represents one of the most profound forms of character development possible in a world where strength and will determine the shape of reality itself. The ancient power that flows through Zoan Devil Fruits connects their users to something far more primal and profound than mere animal transformation. These mystical treasures serve as bridges between the civilized world and the untamed forces that shaped existence long before human cities rose from empty plains or ships first dared to challenge the endless horizons. To consume a Zoan fruit is to invite into one's very soul the essence of creatures that embody aspects of nature itself, the predator's instinct, the prey's vigilance, the ancient wisdom that flows through bloodlines stretching back to the dawn of time. The relationship between user and animal spirit grows more intimate with each transformation, creating bonds that transcend the simple borrowing of physical characteristics. The greatest Zoan users learn to think not just with human consciousness but with the accumulated instincts of their animal forms, gaining access to senses and intuitions that no amount of training could provide. This dual nature creates warriors who possess both the strategic thinking of human intelligence and the raw authenticity of animal nature, unencumbered by the civilized hesitations that can mean the difference between life and death in moments of crisis. Yet, among all Zoan fruits, none carry more weight or mystery than those classified as ancient and mythical types, powers that connect their users to creatures lost to history or beings that may have existed only in the realm of legend and divine mythology. These fruits serve as windows into ages when the world operated according to different rules, when gods walked among mortals and creatures of impossible power shaped the very foundations upon which modern civilization would eventually be built. Kaido's mastery of the Uo Uonomi model Siryu represents perhaps the most terrifying example of what happens when ancient Zoan power combines with an indomitable will and decades of combat experience. His transformation into an Azure Dragon grants him abilities that transcend mere physical enhancement to encompass control over natural forces themselves, the power to summon tornadoes with his movement through the air, to breathe flames hot enough to melt stone, to call down lightning from clear skies with nothing more than focused intent. The psychological impact of wielding such power cannot be understated. Kaido's dragon form stands as tall as mountains, its presence alone sufficient to cast shadows over entire cities and inspire terror in the hearts of seasoned warriors. The casual destruction he can inflict while merely moving through the environment demonstrates how ancient Zoan powers operate on scales that dwarf human comprehension, turning their users into living natural disasters, whose very existence challenges the assumption that individuals, no matter how powerful, should be limited by the constraints of flesh and blood. The loneliness that accompanies such overwhelming strength permeates every aspect of Kaido's existence, his repeated attempts at suicide speaking to a deeper hunger for someone capable of providing the challenge and connection that can only come from facing an equal. His dragon form becomes both blessing and curse, granting him power beyond mortal limitation, while isolating him in a realm of strength where genuine companionship becomes nearly impossible to achieve. Marco's mastery of the Tori Tori no Mi model Phoenix demonstrates how mythical Zoan powers can embody concepts that transcend physical existence to encompass spiritual and philosophical ideals. His transformation into the legendary Firebird grants him not just the ability to fly and fight, but access to blue flames of regeneration that can heal wounds that should be fatal while purging toxins that would kill ordinary humans within moments of exposure. The Phoenix represents rebirth and renewal, cycles of death and resurrection that mirror the eternal nature of hope itself. Marco's flames burn with a light that seems to emanate from sources beyond mere combustion, carrying within them the promise that no matter how devastating the injuries suffered, no matter how complete the apparent defeat, recovery and renewed strength remain possible for those who possess sufficient will to embrace the pain of transformation. During the war at Marineford, Marco's ability to regenerate from attacks that would have killed anyone else served as both tactical advantage and symbolic representation of the Whitebeard pirates' refusal to accept defeat. His flames became beacons of hope in the darkest moments of battle, proof that some things could survive even the most overwhelming assault when supported by powers that operated according to principles deeper than mere physical law. The Buddha form granted by Sengoku's Hito Hito no Mi model Daibutsu represents the intersection of spiritual enlightenment and devastating martial power, demonstrating how mythical Zoan abilities can embody philosophical concepts made manifest through divine transformation. His golden Buddha statue formed towers over battlefields, like a monument to justice itself, radiating an aura of authority that speaks to decades of meditation on the nature of right and wrong. The shockwaves that Sengoku can generate through his Buddha form carry more than mere kinetic force. They represent the application of enlightened will, made tangible, justice given form and unleashed against those who would threaten the order he has spent his lifetime defending. The psychological impact of facing a giant golden Buddha whose every gesture carries the weight of absolute moral certainty creates challenges that extend far beyond the physical damage such attacks can inflict. Yet the burden of embodying justice itself weighs heavily on anyone who claims such power. The knowledge that their actions will be judged not just by their effectiveness, but by their adherence to the highest possible moral standards. Sengoku's occasional moments of doubt and internal conflict demonstrate how even those granted divine authority must grapple with the fundamental uncertainty that accompanies all moral decision-making in a world where right and wrong often blur together in shades of grey. The revelation of Luffy's true devil fruit nature casts his entire journey in a dramatically different light, transforming what had seemed like simple rubber powers into something connected to the deepest mysteries of the world's hidden history. The Hito Hito no Mi model Nika represents more than just another mythical Zoan. It embodies the concept of liberation itself, connecting its user to a legendary figure who was worshipped as the sun god by those who understood freedom to be the most sacred of all possible values. The awakening of Gear 5th during Luffy's battle with Kaido demonstrated abilities that seem to operate according to principles borrowed from the realm of pure imagination, rather than the brutal logic of physical combat. His power to transform his surroundings into rubber, to catch lightning bolts with bare hands, to run on air itself as if it were solid ground, suggested that the Nika fruit granted access to reality manipulation on levels that transcended every previously understood limitation of devil fruit abilities. The laughter that accompanied this awakening was not mere joy, but something far more profound, the sound of freedom itself breaking through the oppression that had weighed down Wano for 20 years. The rubber boy who had always fought for his friend's happiness had become something approaching the physical manifestation of hope, proof that even the darkest circumstances could be transformed through sufficient determination and the willingness to embrace the absurd possibilities that life occasionally offered to those brave enough to reach for them. Yamato's connection to the Inu Inu no Mi model Okuchi no Makami reflects the deep relationship between mythical Zoan powers and the protective instincts that drive individuals to sacrifice their own comfort for the sake of others. Her transformation into the guardian wolf deity grants her not just physical power, but access to ice-based abilities that seem to flow from the very concept of protection made manifest through divine intervention. The Okuchi no Makami was revered as a guardian deity that watched over Wano from threats both internal and external, its icy breath capable of freezing enemies, while its howl could rally allies to acts of courage that transcended their normal limitations. Yamato's embodiment of this protective spirit reflects her own journey from daughter of a tyrant to someone willing to fight against her own father for the sake of people she barely knew but felt compelled to defend. The internal conflict between her human consciousness and the wolf deity's instincts creates a complexity that goes far beyond simple animal transformation, forcing her to navigate between her own desires for freedom and adventure and the protective responsibilities that come with wielding power connected to guardianship itself. Her ice abilities serve as extensions of her commitment to creating barriers between innocent people and those who would harm them, even when such protection comes at great personal cost. The eight-headed snake form granted by Kurozumi Orochi's Hebi Hebi no Mi model Yamata no Orochi demonstrates how mythical Zoan powers can embody corruption and tyranny just as easily as they can represent heroism and protection. His transformation into the legendary serpent granted him not just multiple heads and enhanced regenerative abilities, but access to the kind of serpentine cunning that had allowed him to maintain power through decades of manipulation and betrayal. The Yamata no Orochi of legend was a creature of pure malevolence, a being that demanded sacrifice and spread poison wherever it went. Orochi's embodiment of this mythical beast reflected his own approach to leadership, consuming everything around him while contributing nothing of value, growing fat on the suffering of others while justifying his cruelty through appeals to destiny and inherited right. The multiple heads of his serpent form served as perfect metaphor for his fractured personality and his ability to maintain multiple deceptions simultaneously, each head capable of speaking different lies, while the others focused on different aspects of his schemes. His defeat required not just physical violence, but the kind of moral clarity that could see through decades of accumulated falsehoods to strike at the essential cowardice that lay beneath all his apparent power. The Pegasus form that Doku's horse Stronger gained through consumption of the Uma Uma no Mi model Pegasus demonstrates how even animals can be transformed by the power of mythical creatures, gaining abilities that transcend their original nature while maintaining the essential characteristics that define their species. The flying horse represents the marriage of earthbound strength with heavenly aspiration, creating a mount worthy of those who seek to bridge the gap between mortal ambition and divine possibility. Onimaru's transformation through the Inu Inu no Mi model Onyudo reveals how mythical Zoan powers can connect their users to aspects of spiritual tradition and religious practice, granting access to forms that embody the intersection between physical and metaphysical realms. His ability to take the shape of a giant monk reflects the deep connection between animal nature and spiritual enlightenment, demonstrating that wisdom and power need not be mutually exclusive when properly understood and applied. The ancient Zoan fruits that populate the beast pirates demonstrate how prehistoric power can be channeled through modern users, creating warriors who combine primordial strength with contemporary fighting techniques. Each dinosaur form grants its user access to instincts and abilities that have been refined through millions of years of evolution, predatory skills honed to perfection before being preserved in devil fruit form for future generations to discover and master. Drake's Allosaurus form embodies the perfect predator, a creature designed by natural selection to hunt, kill, and dominate its environment through the efficient application of overwhelming physical force. His transformation grants him not just enhanced strength and durability, but access to predatory instincts that can identify weaknesses in opponents and exploit them with ruthless precision. Page 1's Spinosaurus form reflects the semi-aquatic nature of its prehistoric inspiration, granting him versatility that allows him to excel in environments where other dinosaur forms might struggle. The unique, sail-like structure on his back serves both defensive and offensive purposes, while marking him as something distinct from the more familiar Tyrannosaur and Triceratops forms favored by his colleagues. Ulti's Pachycephalosaurus form focuses her combat style around the reinforced skull that gives the species its name, transforming headbutt attacks from desperate moves into primary weapons, capable of devastating effectiveness. Her fighting style becomes an extension of her personality, direct, aggressive, and absolutely committed to overwhelming opponents through sheer stubborn persistence rather than complex strategy. The awakening process that some Zoan users achieve represents the ultimate integration between human consciousness and animal instinct, creating beings that transcend both their original nature and their transformed state to become something entirely new. These awakened forms possess enhanced physical capabilities, while maintaining access to the strategic thinking that distinguishes humans from mere beasts, creating warriors whose power operates on levels that neither human nor animal could achieve independently. The psychological transformation that accompanies Zoan awakening goes far beyond mere power enhancement to encompass fundamental changes in how the user perceives and interacts with the world around them. Awakened users report heightened awareness of natural cycles and instinctual understanding of environmental patterns that had previously been invisible to their human consciousness, suggesting that these fruits grant access to information that transcends normal sensory input. The durability and regenerative capabilities that characterize awakened Zoan forms speak to the deep connection between these powers and the fundamental life force that animates all living creatures. Users in awakened states can recover from injuries that would be fatal to normal humans, while maintaining combat effectiveness that allows them to continue fighting long after exhaustion should have forced retreat. The relationship between Zoan fruits and the ancient history of the world becomes increasingly apparent as more powerful examples are discovered and their abilities are fully explored. These fruits seem to serve as repositories of information and instincts from ages when the world operated according to different rules, when the barriers between species were more fluid and the distinction between myth and reality had not yet solidified into the rigid categories that govern modern understanding. The connection between certain mythical Zoan fruits and the Void Century suggests that these powers may serve as keys to understanding historical truths that the world government has spent 8 centuries trying to suppress. The fact that Luffy's Nika fruit was hunted so persistently speaks to fears about what might happen if certain types of ancient power were to resurface and challenge the carefully maintained systems of control that keep the current world order stable. The tribal reverence that many cultures show towards specific animals and mythical creatures may reflect ancestral memories of when such beings possessed power that transcended mere physical existence. The stories and legends that persist across different islands and civilizations often contain echoes of truths about the nature of Zoan power and its connection to forces that shape the world long before human civilization established its courant patterns. The responsibility that comes with wielding ancient and mythical Zoan power extends far beyond personal combat effectiveness to encompass the preservation and embodiment of qualities that these legendary creatures represented. Users become living links to ages and ideals that might otherwise be lost to time, carrying within themselves the obligation to honor the spirits they have invited to share their existence. The greatest Zoan users understand that their power comes not from dominating the animal aspects of their nature, but from achieving harmony between human consciousness and instinctual wisdom, creating synthesis that allows both aspects of their identity to contribute to their effectiveness without either overwhelming the other. This balance requires years of patient cultivation and the willingness to accept aspects of themselves that civilized society often encourages people to suppress or ignore. As the world moves toward whatever great conflict awaits in the future, the ancient and mythical Zoan users who have emerged represent more than just powerful individuals. They embody connections to forces and principles that may prove essential for understanding the true nature of the challenges ahead and the resources that will be required to meet them successfully. The mastery of elemental forces through Logia Devil Fruits represents perhaps the most profound transformation that any human being can undergo, requiring not merely the consumption of mystical power, but the complete surrender of one's physical identity to become one with the fundamental forces that govern the natural world. These fruits grant their users the ability to create, control, and transform into elements that have shaped the planet since its formation, connecting them to energies and phenomena that operate on scales far beyond individual human comprehension. To consume a Logia fruit is to accept that one's body will never again be merely flesh and blood, but something far more elemental and eternal. The user's consciousness must learn to inhabit forms of matter and energy that follow entirely different rules than solid human anatomy, adapting to existence as fire that burns without fuel, ice that preserves without cold, or lightning that strikes without storm clouds. This transformation challenges every assumption about what it means to be human while opening doorways to power that can reshape entire environments with a focused thought. The philosophical implications of elemental transformation extend far beyond the practical advantages of becoming intangible to physical attacks or wielding destructive forces with casual ease. Logia users must grapple with fundamental questions about identity and responsibility that never trouble those whose power remains contained within normal physical limitations. When one's anger can trigger volcanic eruptions, or one's sadness can freeze entire harbors solid, the relationship between internal emotional states and external consequences becomes impossible to ignore or dismiss. Sakazuki's mastery of the Magu Magu no Mi embodies the terrifying potential that emerges when absolute conviction combines with the power to transform into molten rock itself. His magma form operates at temperatures that can melt steel within seconds of contact, creating a presence so intensely destructive that even being near him becomes dangerous for anyone lacking sufficient protective measures. The psychological impact of facing someone whose very existence burns hot enough to turn sand into glass creates challenges that extend far beyond the obvious physical threats such power represents. The philosophy of absolute justice that drives Sakazuki's actions finds perfect expression through his elemental nature, his willingness to sacrifice anything and anyone in service of his interpretation of righteousness, mirrored by magma's tendency to consume and destroy everything in its path. His molten fists carry not just devastating heat, but the weight of unwavering moral certainty, each attack delivered with the conviction that whatever damage results serves the greater good as he understands it. The environmental destruction that follows in Sakazuki's wake speaks to the broader implications of elemental power unleashed without restraint or consideration for collateral consequences. His battle with Kuzan on Punk Hazard transformed an entire island into a hellscape split between fire and ice, demonstrating how conflicts between Logia users can reshape geography itself and create lasting changes that affect ecosystems for generations beyond the original combatants. Kuzan's relationship with the Hai no Mi represents a fundamentally different approach to elemental mastery, his ice powers serving as extensions of a philosophy that values preservation over destruction, reflection over immediate action. His ability to freeze vast areas of ocean creates temporary islands where none existed before, providing safe passage for those who understand how to navigate his crystalline constructions, while demonstrating the creative potential that emerges when elemental power serves purposes beyond mere combat. The psychological distance that characterizes Kuzan's approach to justice finds perfect expression through his ice abilities, his tendency to freeze situations in place rather than rushing toward immediate resolution, allowing time for deeper consideration of complex moral questions. His elemental form becomes a physical manifestation of his belief that some problems require cooling rather than heating, that patience and careful observation often reveal solutions that aggressive intervention would never discover. The internal conflict that eventually drove Kuzan to leave the Marines speaks to the burden that comes with wielding power capable of preserving or destroying entire civilizations depending on how it is applied. His ice abilities could create frozen wastelands that would remain uninhabitable for decades, yet the same powers could preserve life by creating barriers against destructive forces, or providing cooling relief in environments where heat threatened to overwhelm human endurance. Borsellino's mastery of the Pika Pika no Mi grants him control over light itself, transforming him into someone who can move at speeds that approach the fundamental limits of physical law, while wielding the power to create laser beams that can pierce through virtually any defensive material. His light form operates according to principles that challenge normal understanding of how matter and energy interact, allowing him to exist as pure photons while maintaining the ability to reassemble into human shape at will. The casual attitude that Borsellino maintains toward his incredible abilities reflects a personality that has learned to treat godlike power as merely another tool for accomplishing routine tasks. His tendency to speak slowly and move deliberately, creating ironic contrast with his ability to cross vast distances in microseconds when situations actually demand urgency. This disconnect between his enormous potential and his relaxed approach to using it creates psychological advantages that often prove more valuable than raw speed or destructive capability. The moral ambiguity that characterizes Borsellino's approach to marine duty finds perfect expression through his light-based powers, his attacks capable of both illuminating truth and creating blinding brilliance that obscures important details depending on how they are applied. His laser beams can serve as precise surgical instruments or devastating weapons of mass destruction, the difference determined entirely by his moment-to-moment decisions about how much force any given situation requires. The darkness that Marshall D. Teach commands through his Yami Yami no Mi operates according to principles that invert everything other Logia users understand about elemental transformation, his black holes and gravitational manipulation, creating voids that devour light and matter, rather than producing or controlling existing phenomena. His darkness serves as a philosophical statement about the nature of ambition itself, consuming everything it encounters, while promising power that comes at prices most people would consider too high to pay. The unique properties that distinguish Blackbeard's darkness from other Logia abilities reflect the fundamental corruption that drives his pursuit of power without regard for consequence or cost. His darkness cannot grant him the intangibility that protects other elemental users, instead drawing attacks toward him while amplifying the pain he experiences from physical damage. This vulnerability serves as constant reminder that his power comes from embracing destruction rather than transcending physical limitations through harmony with natural forces. The nullification abilities that allow Blackbeard to suppress other Devil Fruit users' powers represent perhaps the most terrifying aspect of his darkness-based abilities. His touch capable of reducing even the most formidable opponents to merely human levels of capability. This power to steal what others have worked lifetimes to develop and master creates a form of theft that goes beyond material possessions to encompass the fundamental aspects of identity that make individuals who they are. Ace's mastery of the Mera Mera no Mi during his brief but brilliant career demonstrated how fire-based powers could serve as extensions of passionate commitment to protecting others, his flames burning with intensity that reflected his dedication to the family he had chosen rather than the heritage he had tried to reject. His fire served as beacon for those who followed him, while becoming weapon capable of devastating effectiveness against anyone who threatened people he cared about. The inheritance of Ace's fruit by Sabo created connections between past and present that transcended mere power transfer to encompass the continuation of ideals and commitments that death had interrupted but not destroyed. Sabo's flames burn with the same protective intensity that characterized his predecessor's use of fire-based abilities, yet his revolutionary background brings different tactical applications and strategic understanding to bear on situations that require more than raw destructive potential. The environmental impact of fire-based Logia powers extends far beyond immediate combat effectiveness to encompass the ability to reshape entire ecosystems through controlled burning or devastating wildfires, depending on how such abilities are deployed. The responsibility that comes with wielding flames capable of consuming entire forests or cities weighs heavily on users who understand the long-term consequences of decisions made in moments of anger or desperation. Enel's command of the Goro Goro no Mi on Skypiea demonstrated how lightning-based powers could create the illusion of divine authority when wielded by someone whose understanding of electrical phenomena exceeded that of the population he sought to control. His ability to travel through electrical conductors at lightning speed, while monitoring conversations through electromagnetic surveillance, created the appearance of omniscience and omnipresence that reinforced his claims to godhood. The psychological corruption that accompanied Enel's electrical mastery illustrates the dangers that emerge when elemental power combines with isolation and unchallenged authority over extended periods. His lightning became extension of his ego rather than tool for serving larger purposes, creating a feedback loop where increased power led to greater arrogance, which in turn justified even more extreme displays of destructive capability. The defeat of Enel by someone whose rubber body provided natural immunity to electrical attacks demonstrated the crucial role that matchups and specific vulnerabilities play in conflicts between Devil Fruit users, regardless of how overwhelming their general power levels might appear to casual observers. His lightning, for all its speed and destructiveness, could not overcome the simple physical properties that made Luffy's body immune to electrical damage. Smoker's relationship with the Moku Moku no Mi reflects the complex moral territory that many Marine officers must navigate when their duty to maintain order conflicts with their personal understanding of justice and fairness. His smoke provides perfect metaphor for the grey areas that characterize law enforcement in a world where corrupt officials often hide behind legitimate authority, while genuine criminals sometimes fight for causes that deserve support rather than suppression. The tactical versatility that smoke-based powers provide allows Smoker to approach situations with options that range from non-lethal restraint to devastating attacks, depending on what each circumstance requires. his white smoke capable of binding enemies without permanent harm, or suffocating them completely when more extreme measures become necessary. This flexibility mirrors his approach to marine duty, his willingness to bend rules when strict adherence would prevent him from serving the deeper principles that originally motivated his decision to become a law enforcement officer. Crocodile's mastery of the Suna Suna no Mi during his years as a warlord demonstrated how desert-based powers could serve ambitious schemes that operated on national and international scales. His ability to create sandstorms and manipulate moisture levels, providing him with weapons that could affect entire populations while maintaining plausible deniability about his involvement in seemingly natural disasters. The aridity that defines Crocodile's approach to both combat and politics finds perfect expression through his sand-based abilities, his power to drain moisture from anything he touches, creating death that comes through desiccation rather than violence. His desert kingdom serves as extension of his elemental nature, transforming Alabasta into an environment that favored his abilities while weakening potential opponents who lacked experience fighting in conditions where water became the most precious commodity. Caesar Clown's manipulation of the Gasu Gasu no Mi showcased how scientific knowledge could amplify Logia abilities far beyond their obvious applications. His understanding of chemistry, allowing him to create custom poison gases and manipulate atmospheric compositions in ways that turned entire buildings into weapons, designed to kill through suffocation or toxic exposure rather than direct attack. The moral flexibility that characterizes Caesar's approach to using his gas-based powers reflects the corruption that emerges when scientific curiosity becomes divorced from ethical considerations. His willingness to experiment on children and create weapons of mass destruction, demonstrating how elemental abilities can serve the darkest aspects of human nature when placed in hands that lack restraint or empathy. Caribou's command of the Numa Numa no Mi represents perhaps the least impressive example of Logia mastery, his swamp-based abilities providing useful utility for storage and surprise attacks while lacking the overwhelming destructive potential that characterizes more powerful elemental fruits. His approach to using these abilities reflects his opportunistic personality, treating his powers as tools for theft and cowardice, rather than forces capable of serving larger purposes or ideals. The awakening potential that exists within all Logia abilities remains largely unexplored territory, with most users having achieved sufficient power through basic elemental transformation that they never felt compelled to push their abilities toward the transcendent states that awakening represents. The few hints that have emerged suggest that awakened Logia powers might grant users the ability to permanently transform environmental conditions across vast areas, creating lasting changes that persist long after the original user has departed or died. The environmental responsibility that comes with wielding elemental forces becomes increasingly apparent as users grow more powerful and their abilities begin to affect larger areas for longer periods. The casual use of magma, ice, or lightning in populated areas can create consequences that persist for decades, transforming fertile land into unusable wasteland or altering weather patterns in ways that affect entire regional ecosystems. The philosophical journey that each Logia user must undertake involves learning to think not just as individuals who happen to possess elemental abilities, but as living embodiments of the forces they control, understanding that their emotions and decisions now carry environmental consequences that extend far beyond personal relationships or immediate tactical considerations. This transformation in perspective often proves more challenging than mastering the technical aspects of elemental manipulation. The relationship between Logia abilities and Haki creates tactical considerations that force even the most powerful elemental users to develop fighting skills beyond their obvious advantages. The existence of opponents who can bypass intangibility through willpower alone, ensuring that raw elemental power alone remains insufficient for achieving victory against truly formidable opponents. The legacy that each Logia user creates through their approach to wielding elemental power becomes part of the natural world itself, their battles and decisions leaving permanent marks on geography and climate that future generations will inherit regardless of whether they understand the human dramas that shape the world they inhabit. The transformation of the human form through Paramecia devil fruits represents one of the most intimate and psychologically complex relationships that can exist between power and identity, requiring users to navigate the profound implications of bodies that no longer conform to the basic assumptions about what flesh and blood should be capable of achieving. These fruits fundamentally alter the physical nature of their users in ways that go far beyond temporary enhancement or external tool usage, creating permanent changes that affect every aspect of daily existence, while challenging conventional understanding of the boundaries between self and ability. The psychological journey that accompanies such transformation often proves more challenging than mastering the technical aspects of newly acquired powers, forcing individuals to reconstruct their entire sense of identity around bodies that respond to different rules than those they spent their entire lives learning to navigate. The simple act of moving through space becomes a conscious decision when one's limbs can stretch impossible distances, when one's skin can become harder than steel, or when gravity itself can be defied through conscious manipulation of weight and density. Monkey D. Luffy's relationship with his rubber body demonstrates how profound physical transformation can serve as extension of existing personality traits, rather than fundamental alteration of character. His naturally flexible approach to problem-solving, finding perfect expression through flesh that can bend and stretch in ways that would shatter normal human anatomy. The joy he derives from discovering new applications for his abilities reflects the same curiosity and enthusiasm that characterized his approach to life, long before he consumed the devil fruit that would reshape his entire existence. The development of his gear techniques throughout his journey showcases how body modification abilities can evolve through creative thinking and desperate necessity, each new form representing deeper understanding of what becomes possible when conventional limitations are abandoned in favor of approaches that embrace the absurd potential that rubber anatomy provides. Gear Second's acceleration of blood flow through elastic vessels creates speed that approaches supernatural levels, while maintaining the essential humanity that keeps such power grounded in recognizable physical principles. Gear Third's bone inflation transforms his limbs into weapons capable of devastating impact while demonstrating the risks that come with pushing transformed anatomy beyond its tested limits. The temporary shrinkage that follows serving as a reminder that even supernatural bodies have consequences for extreme usage. The vulnerability that accompanies such power speaks to deeper truths about the relationship between strength and sacrifice that defines every meaningful application of devil fruit abilities. The awakening that manifests as Gear Fifth reveals the ultimate potential of body transformation, when it transcends physical modification to encompass reality manipulation itself. Luffy's rubber properties extending to his environment in ways that transform entire battlefields according to principles that seem borrowed from animation rather than actual physics. This evolution demonstrates how the most profound body modification fruits eventually blur the boundaries between internal transformation and external influence. Josu's mastery of the Kira Kira no Mi represents the pinnacle of defensive body modification, his diamond transformation, granting him durability that exceeds virtually every known substance, while creating psychological presence that commands respect through sheer invulnerability to conventional attacks. The light that refracts through his crystalline form serves as both beautiful display and tactical advantage, creating visual confusion for opponents, while demonstrating the aesthetic potential that emerges when human flesh becomes something approaching living jewelry. The weight that accompanies diamond transformation extends beyond mere physical mass to encompass the psychological burden of becoming something so precious that enemies will go to extraordinary lengths to claim pieces of his body for their own purposes. The knowledge that one's flesh has become more valuable than most treasures creates unique vulnerabilities that go far beyond simple combat considerations, making even routine interactions with others complicated by questions about motivations and ultimate intentions. The inflexibility that characterizes diamond as a substance creates interesting parallels with Josu's unwavering loyalty to Whitebeard and the Whitebeard pirates. His physical transformation, reflecting personality traits that value steadfast commitment over adaptable strategy. His fighting style becomes extension of his crystalline nature, delivering attacks with devastating force while accepting whatever damage results from his straightforward approach to conflict resolution. Bartolomeo's command of the Bari Bari no Mi showcases how defensive body modification can serve purposes that extend far beyond personal protection to encompass the safeguarding of ideals and individuals that the user considers worthy of absolute defense. His barriers materialize instantly through simple hand gestures, creating protective walls that have never been successfully breached by any known force, suggesting that his power draws from convictions so absolute that they manifest as unbreakable physical constructs. The psychological profile required for effective barrier creation speaks to deeper aspects of personality that value protection over aggression, defense over offense, preservation over destruction. Bartolomeo's barriers serve as extensions of his unwavering faith in the people and principles he chooses to defend, their apparent invulnerability reflecting his absolute refusal to accept that the things he cares about should ever be compromised or damaged by external forces. The tactical versatility that barriers provide allows for creative applications that range from platforms for enhanced mobility to weapons capable of devastating offensive capability when deployed with sufficient imagination and strategic thinking. The ability to create instant fortifications anywhere provides advantages that extend far beyond simple defense to encompass battlefield control and tactical positioning that can determine the outcome of conflicts before violence even begins. Buggy's relationship with the Bara Bara no Mi demonstrates how body modification abilities can serve as perfect expression of fragmented personality and scattered approach to life goals. His ability to separate into component parts, reflecting deeper psychological patterns that resist unified purpose or concentrated effort. The immunity to cutting attacks that accompanies his segmented nature provides defensive advantages that he rarely exploits to their full potential due to fundamental character limitations that prevent him from developing comprehensive, strategic thinking. The comedic potential that emerges from Buggy's fragmented form often obscures the genuinely formidable tactical advantages that complete body separation could provide in the hands of someone with greater imagination and strategic acumen. His body parts can move independently across vast distances while maintaining sensory connection to his consciousness, creating reconnaissance and surprise attack possibilities that more focused individuals would develop into devastating tactical assets. The psychological implications of existing as someone whose body naturally falls apart reflect deeper themes about identity, unity, and the challenge of maintaining coherent sense of self when physical form no longer provides reliable foundation for self-understanding. Buggy's tendency toward grandiose claims and theatrical behavior serves as compensation for fundamental insecurities about his own fragmented nature and its impact on his ability to achieve lasting accomplishments. Bellamy's mastery of the Banebane Nomi showcases how spring-based body modification can serve both destructive and redemptive purposes depending on the character and motivations of the user. His transformation from petty bully to someone worthy of respect, paralleling his evolution from crude application of bouncing attacks to sophisticated understanding of kinetic energy, manipulation, and tactical positioning. The directional limitations that characterize spring-based movement create interesting tactical challenges that force users to develop exceptional planning and prediction skills. The inability to change course mid-flight, requiring careful consideration of battlefield positioning and enemy movement patterns before committing to specific attack trajectories. This constraint forces strategic thinking that might otherwise be neglected by users whose abilities provide more flexible approach options. The redemptive arc that accompanies Bellamy's character development demonstrates how body modification abilities can serve as metaphors for personal growth and transformation, his springs becoming symbols of resilience and the ability to bounce back from failures rather than merely weapons for intimidating those weaker than himself. The energy that he learns to store and release through his modified anatomy mirrors his capacity for positive change when properly motivated. Dazbone's command of the Super Nomi represents perhaps the most straightforward application of weapon-based body modification. His ability to transform any part of his anatomy into steel blades, creating a living arsenal that requires no external tools or weapons to achieve devastating effectiveness in combat situations. The psychological adaptation required to think of one's own body as a collection of potential weapons fundamentally alters the user's relationship with physical contact and casual interaction. The defensive applications of blade-based transformation extend beyond obvious offensive capabilities to encompass protection that rivals even the most sophisticated armor, his steel skin providing immunity to cutting attacks while maintaining the flexibility and mobility that conventional metal protection would severely compromise. This combination of offensive and defensive capabilities creates tactical advantages that few opponents can match without specialized techniques or supernatural abilities of their own. The philosophical implications of becoming a living weapon speak to deeper questions about the relationship between human nature and violence, the way that physical transformation toward combat effectiveness might influence psychological development and moral reasoning, the constant awareness that casual gestures could result in serious injury to others creates social isolation that affects personal relationships and emotional development in ways that extend far beyond simple combat considerations. Baby Five's mastery of the Buki no Mi demonstrates the ultimate evolution of weapon-based body modification, her ability to transform into any conceivable armament, providing tactical versatility that adapts instantly to whatever challenges present themselves during combat or other dangerous situations. The psychological profile required for such comprehensive transformation speaks to deep-seated need for utility and purpose that drives her to define personal worth through usefulness to others. The range of weapons that her body can become spans from small firearms suitable for precision work to artillery pieces capable of devastating area effects, each transformation requiring not just physical restructuring, but mental adaptation to the specific requirements and limitations that different weapon types impose on their users. This cognitive flexibility demonstrates how advanced body modification can enhance mental capabilities alongside physical ones. The emotional vulnerability that characterizes Baby Five's personality creates interesting contrast with the devastating offensive capabilities her fruit provides, her desperate need for acceptance and validation, driving her to place her weapon-like abilities at the service of anyone who shows her kindness or claims to need her assistance. This disconnect between external power and internal insecurity illustrates how physical transformation alone cannot address underlying psychological needs. Very Good's command of the Beriberi no Mi showcases how even seemingly limited body modification can provide significant tactical advantages when applied with sufficient creativity and strategic understanding. His ability to separate into spherical components, granting immunity to blunt force attacks while creating opportunities for surprise strikes and defensive positioning that conventional anatomy could never achieve. The mathematical precision required for effective sphere-based combat creates interesting intellectual challenges that force users to develop spatial reasoning and geometric thinking that extends far beyond normal fighting. Instincts, each separation and reformation, requiring calculation of trajectories, impact forces, and reassembly timing that would overwhelm less analytically inclined individuals. The psychological adaptation to existing as someone whose natural response to danger involves literally falling apart reflects deeper themes about maintaining identity and coherent sense of self when physical form becomes fluid and temporary rather than stable and permanent. The ability to scatter and reform provides ultimate escape mechanism while creating existential questions about what constitutes the essential self when body becomes optional. Alvida's transformation through the Sub no Mi demonstrates how body modification can serve purposes that extend far beyond combat effectiveness to encompass self-image and social interaction. Her smooth skin, providing both defensive capabilities and aesthetic enhancement that addresses personal insecurities while granting practical advantages in dangerous situations. The slippery surface that characterizes her modified anatomy causes attacks to slide harmlessly away while creating mobility options that conventional friction would prevent. The psychological impact of dramatic physical transformation speaks to deeper human desires for self-improvement and the lengths that individuals will go to address perceived inadequacies in their appearance or capabilities. Alvida's evolution from someone defined by conventional standards of beauty to someone whose power transcends such limitations illustrates how devil fruit abilities can serve as catalysts for personal growth that extends far beyond mere physical enhancement. The social implications of possessing a body that causes everything to slip away create interesting challenges for forming meaningful relationships and emotional connections. The physical barrier that prevents normal contact serving as metaphor for psychological walls that prevent genuine intimacy and vulnerability with others. The philosophical questions that arise from body modification devil fruits extend beyond individual transformation to encompass broader themes about human nature, identity, and the relationship between physical form and essential self. These abilities force users to confront fundamental assumptions about what it means to be human when their bodies no longer conform to species standard limitations and capabilities. The medical and scientific implications of permanent body modification through supernatural means create fascinating possibilities for research and understanding that remain largely unexplored due to the rarity and danger associated with studying devil fruit users under controlled conditions. The potential applications for healing, enhancement, and adaptation that such abilities might provide could revolutionize medicine if their underlying principles could be understood and replicated. The evolutionary implications of body modification abilities suggest possibilities for human adaptation and survival that transcend normal biological limitations, granting individuals capabilities that might prove essential for surviving in environments or facing challenges that would overwhelm unmodified human physiology. The artistic and aesthetic potential that emerges from radical body modification creates opportunities for expression and beauty that conventional human form could never achieve, transforming users into living sculptures or demonstrations of what becomes possible when flesh becomes medium for creative vision rather than simple biological necessity. The legacy that each body modification user creates through their approach to transformed anatomy influences how society understands the relationship between human nature and supernatural enhancement, their choices and actions shaping public perception about whether such abilities represent evolution or aberration, opportunity or threat. The devil fruits that grant dominion over conceptual forces and abstract principles represent perhaps the most philosophically unsettling category of supernatural abilities, challenging fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality itself and forcing both users and observers to confront the terrifying possibility that the laws governing existence might be far more malleable than anyone had dared to imagine. These abilities operate according to principles that transcend physical manipulation to encompass the manipulation of concepts themselves: pain, memory, gravity, time, and even the basic relationship between cause and effect. The psychological burden that accompanies such power extends far beyond the practical considerations of combat effectiveness or tactical advantage to encompass existential questions about responsibility, identity, and the moral implications of wielding abilities that can rewrite the fundamental nature of other people's experiences and memories. When one's touch can erase decades of cherished relationships from someone's mind, or when one's emotions can alter the gravitational fields that keep planets in their orbits, every moment of existence becomes weighted with consequences that most human beings could never comprehend. Bartholomew Kuma's mastery of the Nikyu no Mi stands as perhaps the most conceptually disturbing example of reality manipulation ever recorded. His paw-shaped pads, granting him the ability to repel not just physical objects and energy attacks, but abstract concepts that should exist beyond the reach of any physical intervention. The sight of pain being expelled from Luffy's body as a visible bubble challenged every assumption about the relationship between suffering and consciousness, demonstrating that even the most intimate aspects of human experience could be externalized and manipulated like tangible objects. The philosophical implications of being able to repel memories, fatigue, or even entire personalities create moral dilemmas that no ethical framework has ever been designed to address adequately. Kuma's decision to absorb all of Luffy's accumulated damage and transfer it to Zoro represented an act of sacrifice that transcended normal understanding of what it means to bear another person's burden, literally redistributing suffering in ways that challenged basic assumptions about individual responsibility and shared experience. The teleportation abilities that Kuma developed through his fruit's power operate according to principles that seem to ignore distance, time, and the physical barriers that normally constrain movement through space. His ability to send people flying across the world with a single touch suggests that his power manipulates not just the concept of location, but the very relationship between consciousness and physical presence, separating individuals from their spatial context in ways that should be impossible according to conventional physics. The transformation of Kuma into a cyborg created additional layers of complexity around his reality manipulation abilities, his mechanical components serving as both enhancement and limitation of his natural devil fruit powers. The programming that eventually overwrote his consciousness demonstrated how even the most profound conceptual abilities could be constrained and redirected by those who understood how to exploit the boundaries between human will and artificial control systems. Perona's command of the Horo no Mi demonstrates how psychological manipulation can be elevated to supernatural levels through devil fruit abilities that target the fundamental relationship between consciousness and emotional state. Her negative hollows pass through their targets to induce states of profound depression and self-doubt that completely incapacitate even the most confident warriors, creating a form of attack that bypasses all physical defenses to strike directly at the core of personal identity and self-worth. The immunity that certain personality types display toward Perona's negative ghosts reveals interesting insights about the relationship between pre-existing psychological patterns and supernatural influence, suggesting that individuals who have already achieved certain forms of emotional equilibrium or self-acceptance may be naturally protected against abilities that rely on exploiting internal vulnerabilities and insecurities. The explosive ghosts that Perona can create alongside her negative varieties demonstrate how reality manipulation abilities often encompass multiple aspects of the concepts they control, her power extending beyond emotional manipulation to include physical destruction when circumstances require more conventional forms of violence. This versatility illustrates how the most sophisticated conceptual abilities provide users with comprehensive tactical options rather than limiting them to single approaches. The astral projection capabilities that her fruit grants allow Perona to exist as conscious spirits separate from her physical body, creating reconnaissance and infiltration possibilities that traditional stealth techniques could never achieve. The vulnerability of her physical form during such projection represents the kind of strategic trade-off that characterizes most reality manipulation abilities, their incredible power balanced by specific weaknesses that skilled opponents can exploit. Foxy's mastery of the Noro no Mi showcases how temporal manipulation can be weaponized through precise control over the relationship between consciousness and the passage of time. His ability to create beams that slow down anything they touch for exactly 30 seconds, providing tactical advantages that go far beyond simple speed enhancement or delay tactics. The affected targets remain fully conscious during their slowed state, creating psychological torture that compounds the physical vulnerability of being unable to react at normal speeds. The precision timing that characterizes Foxy's temporal manipulation suggests that his fruit operates according to specific rules and limitations, rather than providing unlimited control over time itself. The 30-second duration serving as both strength and weakness, depending on how effectively he can exploit the window of opportunity that his power creates. This constraint forces strategic thinking and careful timing that might otherwise be neglected by users whose abilities provide more flexible options. The philosophical implications of time manipulation extend beyond tactical applications to encompass fundamental questions about free will, causality, and the nature of conscious experience. When the normal flow of temporal progression can be artificially altered, the victims of Foxy's ability retain their awareness and decision-making capabilities while being unable to act upon their choices at normal speeds, creating a form of imprisonment that exists within altered time rather than physical space. The accumulated effect of multiple slow beams demonstrates how reality manipulation abilities often provide compound advantages when applied systematically rather than as single isolated attacks. Foxy's ability to layer temporal distortion effects, creating scenarios where opponents face increasingly impossible tactical situations, as more of their capabilities become subject to artificial time dilation. Pudding's command of the Memo no Mi represents perhaps the most intimate and violating form of reality manipulation. Her ability to extract, edit, and replace memories striking at the very foundation of personal identity and individual experience. The physical manifestation of memories as film reels that can be cut, spliced, and rearranged like movie footage, demonstrates how even the most private aspects of consciousness can be made tangible and subject to external manipulation. The psychological horror of memory manipulation extends far beyond simple information theft to encompass the complete reconstruction of personal history and identity. Pudding's ability to create false memories and erase genuine experiences, effectively allowing her to rewrite the fundamental narrative that defines who her victims believe themselves to be. This power challenges basic assumptions about the relationship between experience and identity, raising questions about what constitutes the essential self when memories can be artificially modified or completely fabricated. The emotional manipulation that becomes possible through memory editing creates opportunities for both healing and exploitation that operate on levels far more profound than conventional psychological influence. Her ability to remove traumatic experiences, potentially offering therapeutic benefits, while simultaneously providing tools for abuse that could destroy entire personalities without leaving any trace of the intervention. The limitation that requires physical contact with her target's head creates tactical vulnerabilities that prevent Pudding from using her abilities casually, forcing her to rely on deception and misdirection to create opportunities for memory manipulation rather than being able to alter recollections from a distance or through indirect means. Golden Lion Shiki's mastery of the Fuwa Fuwa no Mi demonstrates how gravity manipulation can be elevated beyond simple levitation to encompass comprehensive control over the fundamental force that governs planetary movement and celestial mechanics. His ability to make objects and even entire islands float according to his will, rather than natural gravitational attraction, creates tactical possibilities that range from enhanced mobility to devastating area of effect attacks using environmental features as weapons. The psychological transformation that accompanies the ability to defy gravity speaks to deeper human desires for freedom from earthbound limitations and the constraints that physical law normally imposes on movement and positioning. Shiki's floating islands serve as extensions of his refusal to accept conventional boundaries, his aerial kingdom, representing the ultimate expression of someone who has transcended normal human relationship with the ground beneath their feet. The strategic applications of gravity manipulation extend far beyond personal combat to encompass large-scale military operations and territorial control. Floating fortresses providing advantages that traditional ground-based installations could never match, while creating logistical challenges for opponents who lack similar aerial capabilities. The ability to weaponize entire landmasses by dropping them from great heights transforms environmental features into ammunition of unprecedented destructive potential. The meteorological effects that result from large-scale gravity manipulation suggest that Shiki's abilities operate on scales that can influence weather patterns and atmospheric conditions, his floating islands potentially affecting air currents and precipitation in ways that could reshape regional climates over extended periods of sustained use. Isho's command of the Zushi no Mi represents a more philosophically grounded approach to gravity manipulation, his abilities serving as extensions of his commitment to justice and his understanding of the weight that moral responsibility places upon those who wield power in service of others. His meteorite attacks demonstrate how gravitational control can reach beyond planetary atmosphere to influence celestial objects, bringing down judgment from the heavens in forms that seem almost divine in their scope and implications. The blindness that characterizes Isho's approach to justice finds perfect metaphorical expression through his gravity-based abilities, his power to increase or decrease the weight that people experience, serving as physical manifestation of the burdens and relief that his decisions create for those affected by his actions. As a Marine Admiral, the visible manifestation of gravitational fields around his targets creates dramatic demonstrations of how moral weight can become literally physical when wielded by someone with appropriate supernatural abilities. The precision control that Isho demonstrates over gravitational effects allows for applications that range from gentle restraint to overwhelming crushing force. His ability to adjust the intensity of gravitational fields, providing non-lethal options for law enforcement, while maintaining the capacity for devastating violence when situations require more extreme responses to criminal activity. The environmental responsibility that accompanies large-scale gravity manipulation weighs heavily on Isho's conscience. His awareness of the collateral damage that meteors and gravitational attacks can cause, forcing him to carefully consider the long-term consequences of using his abilities in populated areas or regions where ecological disruption could affect innocent civilians. Brule's mastery of the Mira Mira no Mi demonstrates how spatial manipulation can create alternate dimensions and pocket realities that exist parallel to normal space. Her mirror world, serving as both sanctuary and prison, depending on the circumstances that bring visitors into contact with her reflective portals. The ability to travel instantly between any mirrors connected to her network provides tactical advantages that transcend normal limitations of distance and physical barriers. The psychological implications of existing partially within an alternate dimension speak to themes of isolation and connection. Brule's mirror world, serving as perfect metaphor for the way that individuals can create private spaces that reflect their internal experiences while remaining connected to but separate from the broader world that everyone else inhabits. The offensive applications of mirror-based reality manipulation include the ability to reflect attacks back at their originators with multiplied force, creating defensive strategies that turn opponents' strength against them, rather than simply absorbing or deflecting incoming damage. This principle of reflection extends beyond combat to encompass the broader philosophical concept of how actions and intentions return to their sources in amplified form. The surveillance capabilities that mirror networks provide create intelligence-gathering opportunities that conventional reconnaissance could never match. Brule's ability to observe activities throughout her territory simultaneously, providing strategic information that gives her allies significant advantages in planning and tactical coordination. Mondor's command of the Buku Buku no Mi showcases how reality manipulation can operate through symbolic representation and literary metaphor. His ability to trap people within books, creating prisons that exist as much in conceptual space as physical reality. The victims of his power remain conscious within their literary confinement, experiencing existence as characters in stories that they cannot escape or control. The creative potential that book-based reality manipulation provides extends beyond simple imprisonment to encompass the ability to create entire worlds and scenarios within literary frameworks, each book potentially serving as container for complex environments and situations that operate according to whatever rules the author chooses to establish. The educational and informational applications of such power could revolutionize learning and knowledge transfer if applied for constructive purposes rather than combat and imprisonment. The ability to create immersive educational experiences within book format realities, providing unprecedented opportunities for direct experience of historical events or scientific principles. The philosophical questions raised by literary imprisonment speak to deeper concerns about the relationship between reality and representation, the boundaries between fiction and experience, and the extent to which symbolic manipulation can affect genuine consciousness and identity. The responsibility that comes with wielding reality manipulation abilities extends far beyond individual combat effectiveness to encompass the fundamental nature of existence itself for everyone who comes into contact with such power. These abilities force their users to grapple with questions that most philosophers spend lifetimes contemplating without ever reaching satisfactory answers. The potential for reality manipulation to be used for healing and positive transformation remains largely unexplored due to the combat-focused context in which most such abilities are discovered and developed, suggesting that peaceful applications of conceptual manipulation could provide benefits that far exceed their obvious military and criminal uses. The cumulative effect of multiple reality manipulators operating within the same region creates compound distortions that could fundamentally alter the nature of physical law and conscious experience for everyone in the affected area, their combined influence potentially creating zones where normal rules cease to apply entirely. The future implications of reality manipulation abilities for human civilization remain impossible to predict accurately. Their potential to reshape fundamental aspects of existence, suggesting possibilities for both transcendent evolution and catastrophic disruption, depending on how such power is understood and applied by those who possess it. The transformation of the human body into a living weapon represents one of the most profound philosophical challenges that any Devil Fruit user can face, requiring individuals to reconcile their humanity with abilities that exist solely for the purpose of inflicting violence upon others. These fruits blur the fundamental distinction between person and armament, creating warriors whose very existence becomes inseparable from their capacity to destroy, maim, and kill with efficiency that transcends every limitation that flesh and blood normally impose upon destructive potential. The psychological adaptation required to think of one's own anatomy as an arsenal fundamentally alters the user's relationship with physical contact, casual interaction, and the basic human need for connection through touch. Every gesture becomes potentially lethal. Every embrace risks transforming into an act of violence, and the simple pleasure of skin-to-skin contact must be weighed against the constant awareness that a moment's loss of control could result in devastating harm to anyone foolish enough to approach without proper caution. Baby Five's mastery of the Buki Buki no Mi demonstrates the ultimate evolution of weapon-based body transformation. Her ability to become any conceivable armament, providing tactical versatility that adapts instantly to whatever challenges present themselves during combat or other dangerous situations. Her body can reshape itself into firearms for precision work, artillery pieces for devastating area effects, or blade weapons for close-quarters combat, each transformation requiring not just physical restructuring, but complete mental adaptation to the specific requirements and operational principles that different weapon types demand from their users. The range of armaments that her anatomy can accommodate extends from simple handheld weapons suitable for personal defense to massive siege engines capable of breaching fortified positions, her transformations limited only by her imagination and understanding of military hardware, rather than any inherent restrictions within her Devil Fruit abilities. This comprehensive arsenal contained within a single human form creates tactical advantages that entire armies would struggle to match through conventional means. The emotional vulnerability that characterizes Baby Five's personality creates a disturbing contrast with the devastating offensive capabilities her fruit provides. Her desperate need for acceptance and validation, driving her to place her weapon-like abilities at the service of anyone who shows her kindness or claims to need her assistance. This disconnect between external power and internal insecurity illustrates how physical transformation alone cannot address underlying psychological needs, often creating individuals whose supernatural abilities serve as compensation for perceived inadequacies in personal worth or social connection. The conditioning that shaped her understanding of personal value through utility to others transforms her weapon transformations from mere combat techniques into expressions of her willingness to become whatever tool might be required to maintain the approval and acceptance she craves. Her body becomes extension of her need to be useful rather than simply powerful, each weapon form representing another way she can prove her worth to those whose opinions matter more to her than her own safety or well-being. Mr. Five's command of the Bomu Bomu no Mi showcases how explosive-based powers can transform every part of the user's anatomy into potential ammunition. His ability to detonate any portion of his body, creating tactical options that range from subtle diversions to devastating area attacks. His breath itself becomes weaponized through conscious control over the explosive properties that permeate every aspect of his physical existence, turning even the most basic biological functions into instruments of destruction. The psychological profile required for effective explosive manipulation speaks to personality traits that embrace risk and chaos while maintaining the precise control necessary to avoid accidental self-destruction. The constant awareness that one's own body contains enough destructive potential to level buildings creates mental pressures that few individuals could withstand without developing some form of compensating mechanism for managing the stress of living as a walking bomb. The tactical applications of controlled explosions extend far beyond simple combat effectiveness to encompass demolition work, mining operations, and construction projects that require precise application of destructive force. Mr. Five's abilities could serve peaceful purposes if channeled toward infrastructure development rather than criminal activities. His power to create explosions of carefully calibrated intensity, providing capabilities that conventional demolition techniques could never match for precision or flexibility. The vulnerability that comes with explosive powers lies in the user's complete dependence on maintaining conscious control over their abilities at all times. Any loss of concentration or emotional stability, potentially resulting in uncontrolled detonations that could destroy not just enemies but allies, innocent bystanders, and the user themselves. This constant requirement for self-monitoring creates psychological burdens that compound over time. Gladius's mastery of the Pamu Pamu no Mi represents an evolution of explosive-based abilities that extends beyond self-detonation to encompass the weaponization of environmental objects. His power to cause any non-living material to rupture and explode, providing tactical advantages that transform entire battlefields into fields of potential ammunition. The psychological impact of fighting someone who can turn everyday objects into improvised explosive devices creates paranoia and hesitation that often proves more valuable than the actual destructive potential of individual attacks. The technical knowledge required to maximize the effectiveness of rupture-based powers forces users to develop understanding of material science, structural engineering, and explosive dynamics that goes far beyond normal combat training. Gladius must understand the stress points and failure modes of different materials to predict how they will behave when subjected to his reality-altering touch, creating intellectual challenges that complement the physical aspects of weapon-based transformation. The environmental destruction that results from widespread use of rupture abilities can persist long after individual battles conclude. The debris and structural damage from exploded buildings and vehicles, creating hazardous conditions that affect entire communities for extended periods. This collateral impact weighs on the conscience of any user who maintains moral awareness beyond immediate tactical considerations. The defensive applications of controlled explosions include the ability to create barriers of destruction that enemies hesitate to cross, the psychological deterrent effect of visible explosive capability, often proving more valuable than the actual deployment of such power in combat situations. The threat of escalation that explosive abilities represent can sometimes resolve conflicts through intimidation rather than actual violence. Eustace Kid's command of the Jiki Jiki no Mi demonstrates how magnetic manipulation can elevate weapon-based powers beyond simple transformation to encompass comprehensive control over metallic objects throughout the battlefield. Environment. His ability to attract and repel ferrous materials allows him to create weapons from scrap metal, construct defensive barriers from available materials, and strip enemies of their metallic equipment, while simultaneously arming himself with whatever metal objects happen to be within range of his magnetic fields. The engineering creativity that Kid displays in constructing complex mechanical devices from random metallic debris speaks to intellectual capabilities that complement his raw magnetic power. His ability to visualize and assemble functional weapons from component parts, requiring spatial reasoning and mechanical understanding that transforms battlefield salvage into sophisticated armaments. The giant mechanical arm he creates from accumulated scrap metal demonstrates how magnetic manipulation can compensate for physical injuries, while actually increasing overall combat effectiveness. The psychological profile that drives Kid's approach to magnetic warfare reflects his refusal to accept limitations or constraints imposed by others. His power to reshape metallic objects according to his will, serving as perfect expression of his determination to force the world to conform to his vision rather than adapting himself to existing circumstances. His magnetic abilities become extensions of his unwillingness to compromise or negotiate when confrontation seems more direct and honest. The environmental impact of large-scale magnetic manipulation extends beyond immediate battlefield effects to encompass disruption of navigational equipment, electronic devices, and any machinery that depends on precise magnetic or electromagnetic function for proper operation. Kid's presence on an island can affect everything from compass readings to communication equipment, creating technological chaos that persists long after he departs. The collaborative potential that magnetic abilities provide remains largely unexplored due to Kid's preference for independent action, but his power to manipulate metal could serve construction and manufacturing purposes that would benefit entire communities if applied to peaceful infrastructure development rather than pirate warfare. The precision control he demonstrates over magnetic fields could revolutionize metalworking and engineering if channeled toward productive rather than destructive applications. Charlotte Cracker's mastery of the Bisu Bisu no Mi showcases how seemingly innocuous materials can become the foundation for devastating military capabilities when manipulated through devil fruit powers that operate outside normal physical limitations. His ability to create infinite numbers of biscuit soldiers from thin air provides him with an army that requires no recruitment, training, or logistical support, while offering defensive and offensive capabilities that can overwhelm opponents through sheer numerical advantage. The psychological warfare potential of facing an enemy who can generate unlimited reinforcements creates despair and exhaustion that often proves more decisive than the actual combat effectiveness of individual biscuit constructs. Opponents must grapple with the knowledge that defeating any number of soldiers will simply result in their immediate replacement, creating tactical scenarios where traditional concepts of attrition and resource management become meaningless. The durability that Cracker achieves through his biscuit constructions demonstrates how devil fruit abilities can elevate ordinary materials far beyond their normal physical properties. His edible soldiers possessing defensive capabilities that rival steel armor while maintaining the flexibility and mobility that conventional protective gear would severely compromise. This transformation of food into military equipment challenges basic assumptions about the relationship between nutritional substances and combat applications. The creative applications of biscuit manipulation extend beyond simple soldier creation to encompass architectural construction, transportation, and even artistic expression. Cracker's ability to shape his creations according to aesthetic preferences, as well as functional requirements, providing opportunities for beauty alongside utility. The temporary nature of his constructions ensures that any environmental impact remains limited to the duration of their existence. The vulnerability that comes with, depending entirely on created soldiers, lies in the user's need to maintain concentration and energy to sustain large numbers of constructs simultaneously. The mental and physical strain of coordinating multiple biscuit soldiers, potentially creating openings that skilled opponents can exploit. The connection between creator and creation also means that psychological attacks against Cracker himself can affect the performance of his entire army. Daz Bones' transformation through the Super Nomi represents the most direct approach to weapon-based body modification. His ability to turn any part of his anatomy into steel blades, creating a living arsenal that requires no external tools or equipment to achieve devastating effectiveness in close-quarters combat. The philosophical implications of becoming a human sword extend beyond tactical considerations to encompass fundamental questions about the relationship between humanity and violence. The way that physical transformation toward pure combat efficiency might influence psychological development and moral reasoning. The defensive applications of blade-based transformation provide protection that rivals sophisticated armor, while maintaining the flexibility and responsiveness that conventional metal protection would severely compromise. His steel skin offering immunity to cutting attacks while preserving full range of motion and tactical mobility. This combination of offensive and defensive capabilities creates advantages that few opponents can match without supernatural abilities or specialized techniques of their own. The precision control required for effective blade manipulation forces users to develop extraordinary awareness of their own anatomy and movement patterns, every gesture requiring conscious consideration of the potential for accidental injury to allies or innocent bystanders. The casual social interactions that most people take for granted become complex calculations of risk and benefit when any physical contact could result in serious harm. The professional pride that characterizes Daz Bones' approach to his transformed anatomy reflects deeper themes about craftsmanship and the pursuit of excellence in chosen specializations. His dedication to perfecting blade-based combat techniques, demonstrating how weapon transformation can become a form of artistic expression, as well as practical skill development. His fighting style becomes extension of his commitment to achieving mastery over the capabilities his devil fruit provides. The psychological adaptation to existing as a living weapon requires fundamental reconstruction of one's relationship with violence, aggression, and the moral implications of possessing capabilities designed specifically for harming others. Users must develop ethical frameworks for determining when their destructive potential should be employed, and when restraint serves better purposes than action. The social isolation that often accompanies weapon-based transformation reflects the way that such abilities can create barriers between users and normal human relationships. The constant awareness of destructive potential making casual contact and emotional vulnerability seem dangerously irresponsible. This isolation can compound over time, creating individuals whose primary connections come through combat rather than peaceful interaction. The training regimens required for mastering weapon-based abilities often involve practices that would be considered extreme or dangerous by conventional standards. Users needing to push their transformed bodies beyond normal safety limits to discover the full extent of their capabilities while learning to control power that could easily destroy them if mishandled. The legacy that each weapon-based devil fruit user creates through their approach to violence and combat influences how society understands the relationship between supernatural power and moral responsibility. Their choices and actions shaping public perception about whether such abilities represent necessary tools for protection or dangerous temptations toward unnecessary aggression. The evolutionary implications of weapon-based transformation suggest possibilities for human adaptation that transcend normal biological limitations, granting individuals capabilities that might prove essential for survival in environments or against threats that would overwhelm conventional human physical capabilities and defensive technologies. The potential for weapon-based abilities to serve protective and constructive purposes remains largely unexplored due to the combat-focused context in which most such powers are discovered and developed, suggesting that peaceful applications of destructive capabilities could provide benefits that far exceed their obvious military and criminal uses if properly understood and applied. The unsung heroes of the devil fruit world are often those whose abilities operate behind the scenes, providing support and creating opportunities that enable the great adventures and legendary battles that capture public imagination while remaining largely invisible to those who witness only the final dramatic confrontations. These environmental and support-based fruits represent a fundamentally different philosophy of power, one that recognizes strength, not through domination or destruction, but through the patient cultivation of conditions that allow others to achieve their full potential while addressing the complex, logistical and tactical challenges that determine victory or defeat long before swords are drawn or fists are thrown. The psychological profile required for effective support ability usage reflects personality traits that find satisfaction in enabling others' success rather than pursuing personal glory. Individuals whose sense of accomplishment comes from witnessing the achievements made possible by their careful preparation and strategic thinking, rather than from direct recognition of their contributions to victory. This selfless approach to power requires wisdom and emotional maturity that often exceeds what is demanded from those whose abilities focus on direct combat applications. Marco's mastery of the Tori Tori no Mi model Phoenix demonstrates how healing-based abilities can serve as the foundation for entire military strategies. His blue flames of regeneration providing tactical advantages that extend far beyond simple medical treatment to encompass psychological warfare and morale maintenance that can determine the outcome of conflicts before the first blow is struck. The sight of seemingly fatal wounds closing instantly creates hope in allies, while inspiring despair in enemies who realize that conventional tactics for wearing down opponents through accumulated damage become meaningless when confronted with supernatural healing capabilities. The philosophical implications of possessing power over life and death through regenerative abilities weigh heavily on users who understand the moral responsibility that accompanies such gifts. Their decisions about when to heal and whom to save, carrying consequences that ripple through entire communities and affect the course of historical events. Marco's commitment to using his flames for protection rather than personal advantage demonstrates how healing powers can serve as foundation for entire ethical frameworks built around preservation rather than destruction. The tactical applications of Phoenix Flames extend beyond individual healing to encompass area purification and the removal of toxins or diseases that conventional medicine cannot address. Marco's ability to burn away poisons and infections while regenerating damaged tissue, providing capabilities that could revolutionize healthcare if applied to civilian populations rather than solely military situations. The blue light that accompanies his healing serves as beacon of hope in the darkest moments of battle, visible proof that recovery remains possible even from seemingly hopeless circumstances. The psychological burden of being able to heal others while being unable to prevent all suffering creates complex emotional challenges for users whose abilities make them witnesses to tragedies. They possess the power to prevent but lack the omnipresence to address everywhere they might be needed. The weight of choosing which injuries to prioritize and which lives to save when resources and time remain limited forces difficult decisions that would break lesser spirits. Manshuri's command of the Chiyu no Mi showcases how healing abilities can operate through different mechanisms while serving similar purposes. Her power to create healing dandelions and tears that can mend both physical wounds and emotional trauma, providing support capabilities that address the complete spectrum of damage that warfare and conflict inflict upon those caught in their wake. The ability to heal buildings and infrastructure alongside living beings demonstrates how support powers can serve reconstruction and recovery efforts that extend far beyond immediate medical needs. The precision control that Manshuri demonstrates over her healing abilities allows for applications that range from subtle pain relief to complete resurrection of recently deceased individuals, her power operating according to principles that blur the traditional boundaries between life and death, while raising philosophical questions about the natural order and the extent to which supernatural intervention should be used to reverse the consequences of violence and disease. The emotional toll of possessing healing abilities that could save lives but require the user to witness suffering they are powerless to prevent creates psychological burdens that compound over time. Healers often developing protective emotional barriers that allow them to function effectively while carrying the weight of every person they were unable to help despite possessing the power to do so. The strategic value of reliable healing support transforms entire military calculations, armies with access to supernatural medical treatment, gaining advantages that go far beyond simple troop numbers to encompass the ability to take risks and sustain operations that would be impossible for forces dependent on conventional medical care and natural recovery rates. Nami's mastery over weather phenomena through her Klima tact represents the evolution of environmental control from simple tool usage to comprehensive atmospheric manipulation that can influence conditions across vast areas. Her ability to summon lightning, create fog banks, and generate localized storms, providing tactical advantages that reshape entire battlefields according to her strategic preferences. The precision required for effective weather control demands understanding of meteorological principles that goes far beyond normal navigation knowledge, forcing her to develop scientific expertise that rivals professional researchers. The psychological transformation that accompanies the ability to command natural forces speaks to deeper themes about humanity's relationship with the environment and the responsibility that comes with wielding power over systems that affect entire ecosystems and regional climates. Nami's weather manipulation can bring life-giving rain to drought-stricken areas or create devastating storms that destroy crops and infrastructure. Her choices carrying environmental consequences that persist long after immediate tactical objectives have been achieved. The artistic potential that weather control provides allows for displays of natural beauty that transcend mere utility. Nami's ability to create rainbow bridges and aurora-like effects in tropical climates, demonstrating how environmental abilities can serve aesthetic and emotional purposes alongside their obvious practical applications. The wonder and joy that such displays inspire can serve diplomatic and morale purposes that prove more valuable than any military advantage. The educational opportunities that comprehensive weather knowledge creates could revolutionize agricultural planning and disaster preparation if Nami's expertise were applied to civilian infrastructure rather than pirate adventures. Her understanding of atmospheric patterns providing insights that could save countless lives through improved forecasting and climate adaptation strategies. Viola's mastery of the Jiro Jiro no Mi demonstrates how information-gathering abilities can serve as force multipliers that amplify the effectiveness of every other power on a team. Her capacity to see through solid objects, read minds, and observe events across vast distances, providing intelligence advantages that eliminate tactical uncertainty while revealing enemy plans and hidden weaknesses that conventional reconnaissance could never discover. The moral implications of possessing abilities that can violate privacy and read private thoughts create ethical dilemmas that few legal or philosophical frameworks have been designed to address. Viola's power to access information that others consider private, raising questions about consent, mental autonomy, and the appropriate limits of surveillance, even when such capabilities serve supposedly beneficial purposes. The psychological burden of possessing enhanced perception that reveals uncomfortable truths about the people around her creates isolation that goes beyond normal social awkwardness to encompass the fundamental loneliness of someone who can see through the deceptions and self-delusions that allow most relationships to function smoothly. The knowledge that comes with omniscient observation often proves more curse than blessing for those who possess it. The strategic applications of enhanced vision extend beyond simple intelligence gathering to encompass quality control, security assessment, and diagnostic capabilities that could serve medical and engineering purposes if applied to civilian infrastructure rather than military operations. Viola's ability to see through materials and identify structural weaknesses could prevent disasters and save lives through early detection of problems that normal inspection methods would miss. Robin's command of the Hana Hana no Mi showcases how multiplication abilities can serve both offensive and utility purposes. Her power to sprout additional body parts from any surface, providing reconnaissance capabilities, construction assistance, and tactical support that adapts to whatever challenges present themselves during complex operations. The precision control she demonstrates over her duplicated limbs allows for delicate work that requires multiple simultaneous actions, while maintaining the strength and dexterity necessary for combat applications. The philosophical implications of existing as someone whose body transcends normal spatial limitations speaks to deeper questions about identity, presence, and the relationship between consciousness and physical form. When additional limbs can appear anywhere within considerable range of her actual location. Robin's ability to be effectively present in multiple locations simultaneously challenges basic assumptions about individual identity and the boundaries of personal space. The archaeological applications of her multiplication abilities provide capabilities that conventional excavation methods could never match. Robin's power to create additional hands and eyes in hard-to-reach locations, allowing for careful exploration of fragile historical sites while minimizing the risk of damage that mechanical tools might inflict on irreplaceable artifacts. The defensive potential of sprouting abilities extends beyond personal protection to encompass crowd control and area denial capabilities. Robin's power to create barriers of arms and hands, providing non-lethal options for managing large numbers of opponents while maintaining the flexibility to escalate to more serious force levels if circumstances require increased aggression. Absalom's mastery of the Suke Suke no Mi demonstrates how invisibility-based abilities can serve purposes that range from legitimate reconnaissance to morally questionable voyeurism. The ethical implications of possessing power that eliminates the visual cues that allow others to maintain appropriate social boundaries, creating responsibility that extends far beyond combat effectiveness to encompass respect for privacy and consent in interpersonal relationships. The tactical advantages that complete invisibility provides include infiltration capabilities that conventional stealth techniques could never achieve, the ability to become completely undetectable to normal vision, creating opportunities for surprise attacks and intelligence gathering that could determine the outcome of conflicts before opponents realize they are under observation. The psychological effects of prolonged invisibility usage can include social isolation and disconnection from normal human interaction patterns, users potentially developing detachment from the consequences of their actions when they can observe, without being observed, in return. The power to exist outside normal social accountability creates risks of moral corruption that require strong ethical foundations to resist. The potential applications of invisibility for scientific research and observation could revolutionize fields that depend on studying behavior that might be altered by the presence of observers, providing opportunities for data collection that would be impossible through conventional methodologies, while raising ethical questions about consent and the rights of subjects who are unaware they are being studied. Kanjuro's command of the Fude no Mi showcases how artistic abilities can serve practical purposes when imagination combines with supernatural power to create functional objects and living beings from simple drawings. His ink-based creations demonstrating how creativity and tactical thinking can transform aesthetic skills into comprehensive support capabilities that adapt to whatever challenges circumstances present. The philosophical implications of possessing power to give life to artistic creations speak to deeper questions about the nature of consciousness, reality, and the relationship between imagination and existence when drawings can achieve independent movement and apparent awareness of their surroundings. Kanjuro's created beings blur the boundaries between art and life in ways that challenge basic assumptions about what constitutes genuine consciousness. The versatility that artistic creation provides allows for solutions to problems that conventional tools and weapons could never address. Kanjuro's ability to draw exactly what any situation requires, providing adaptive capabilities that transcend the limitations of predetermined equipment or planned supplies. This creative problem-solving potential could serve peaceful purposes if applied to construction and infrastructure development, rather than espionage and military operations. The emotional connection that artists develop with their creations can create psychological vulnerabilities when those artistic works are damaged or destroyed. The investment of time, energy, and creative vision in each drawing, potentially making their loss more painful than the destruction of conventional tools or weapons would represent for normal warriors. The cumulative impact of multiple support abilities operating within the same organization creates synergistic effects that multiply the effectiveness of every individual contribution. Comprehensive support networks, allowing frontline combatants to achieve levels of performance that would be impossible without the careful preparation and ongoing assistance that environmental and utility powers provide throughout extended operations. The recognition that support abilities deserve equal respect and compensation, as more obvious combat powers remains inconsistent throughout pirate crews and military organizations. The tendency to focus attention on dramatic individual achievements, often overshadowing the patient work that makes such achievements possible in the first place. The training required for mastering support abilities often demands different skill sets and personality traits than combat-focused powers require. Users needing to develop patience, attention to detail, and understanding of complex systems that operate according to principles far removed from the immediate feedback that characterizes direct confrontation and physical competition. The legacy that support ability users create through their approach to enabling others' success influences how entire organizations understand the relationship between individual glory and collective achievement. Their choices about when to provide assistance and how to develop others' potential shaping the culture and effectiveness of every group they join. The pursuit of artificial devil fruit creation represents one of the darkest chapters in the history of scientific advancement, a testament to humanity's willingness to inflict unimaginable suffering upon the innocent in service of dreams that promise power without the patience required to earn it through legitimate means. The laboratories where these experiments unfold become monuments to the corruption that emerges when brilliant minds operate without moral constraints, their research built upon foundations of human misery that would shame any civilization that truly understood the price being paid for their synthetic miracles. The tragedy of artificial devil fruit development lies not merely in its failure to replicate the genuine power of natural fruits, but in the way it transforms its victims into living reminders of humanity's capacity for casual cruelty disguised as scientific progress. The smile fruits manufactured by Caesar Clown and distributed through Doflamingo's network created thousands of individuals whose suffering serves as permanent testament to the hubris of those who believed they could improve upon forces they fundamentally failed to comprehend. The victims of smile consumption present perhaps the most heartbreaking evidence of what happens when the pursuit of power becomes divorced from consideration of consequence. Their permanent inability to express any emotion except joy, creating psychological torture that exceeds any physical torment that conventional weapons could inflict. The sight of people laughing as they describe the death of loved ones or smile while recounting their own suffering challenges every assumption about the relationship between external expression and internal experience, creating horror that operates on levels no normal cruelty could achieve. The psychological mechanisms that allow the victims to maintain sanity while trapped within bodies that betray their emotional reality speak to reserves of human resilience that most observers could never imagine possessing themselves. These individuals must navigate daily existence knowing that their outward appearance communicates messages completely opposite to their genuine feelings, creating isolation that goes far beyond mere social awkwardness to encompass fundamental disconnection from the basic human need to have internal states recognized and understood by others. The communities that have been subjected to widespread smile distribution demonstrate how artificial devil fruit proliferation can destroy social fabric and cultural identity in ways that conventional warfare could never achieve. Entire populations reduced to caricatures of happiness while experiencing despair that they can never adequately communicate to those around them. The festivals and celebrations that continue in these afflicted regions become grotesque displays of forced joy, hollow mockeries of genuine human celebration that serve as constant reminders of what has been stolen from these people. The economic exploitation that drives smile production reveals the callous calculation behind artificial fruit creation. Kaido's willingness to accept defective products in exchange for quantity, demonstrating how even failed experiments serve the purposes of those who value intimidation and psychological warfare over genuine combat effectiveness. The beast pirates who consume these artificial fruits become living advertisements for the futility of challenging established power structures, their grotesque transformations serving as warnings about what happens to those who dare to reach beyond their assigned stations. The scientific principles underlying smile creation represent a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes natural devil fruits effective. Caesars focus on reproducing superficial effects while ignoring the deeper connections between fruit powers and user consciousness, resulting in abilities that operate like crude mechanical prosthetics rather than extensions of the wielder's essential nature. The synthetic fruits lack the growth potential and evolutionary capacity that characterize genuine devil fruit powers, trapping their users within limitations that can never be transcended through training or experience. The environmental impact of Smile manufacturing extends far beyond the immediate victims to encompass ecological destruction that persists long after production facilities have been abandoned or destroyed. The chemical processes required for artificial fruit creation, producing toxic byproducts that contaminate soil and water supplies, while creating health hazards that affect multiple generations of plant and animal life in the surrounding regions. The medical complications that arise from Smile consumption present challenges that conventional healthcare systems are completely unprepared to address. The permanent neurological changes that prevent normal emotional expression, requiring therapeutic approaches that no existing treatment protocols have been designed to handle. The victims become living experiments in psychological adaptation, forced to develop coping mechanisms that allow them to maintain relationships and pursue goals despite being unable to communicate their genuine emotional states through facial expression or vocal tone. The military applications of Smile distribution demonstrate how artificial devil fruits can serve as weapons of mass psychological destruction. The deployment of defective fruits among enemy populations, creating chaos and demoralization that conventional attacks could never achieve, while providing plausible deniability about deliberate targeting of civilian populations. The long-term effects of such psychological warfare extend far beyond individual suffering to encompass generational trauma that shapes entire cultures for decades after the original attacks. Caesar Clown's approach to artificial fruit development reflects the broader moral bankruptcy that characterizes most attempts to manufacture supernatural power through scientific means, his willingness to experiment on children revealing depths of callousness that would shock even hardened criminals, while demonstrating how the pursuit of knowledge can become corrupted when divorced from ethical considerations about the common human cost of research. The children who served as test subjects in Caesar's experiments represent the ultimate indictment of artificial devil fruit research. Their addiction to artificial stimulants and exposure to toxic substances, creating developmental problems that will affect their entire lives, while serving as living monuments to the scientific community's failure to maintain appropriate ethical standards when conducting research with supernatural implications. The psychological profiles of researchers who participate in artificial fruit development reveal personality traits that prioritize intellectual curiosity over human empathy. Individuals whose fascination with pushing the boundaries of scientific possibility blinds them to the suffering they inflict upon unwilling subjects, while justifying their actions through appeals to greater good that exist only in their own minds. The corporate structures that enable large-scale artificial fruit production demonstrate how economic incentives can corrupt scientific research when profit motives override ethical considerations. Organizations like Doflamingo's criminal network, treating human suffering as acceptable collateral damage in pursuit of market share and competitive advantage in illegal, supernatural enhancement markets. The failure rate of artificial fruit production creates waste streams that include not just defective products, but human casualties whose lives have been destroyed by participation in experiments that offered false hope while delivering only prolonged suffering. The disposal of failed test subjects representing logistical challenges that researchers typically address through methods that would constitute war crimes if applied during conventional military conflicts. The comparison between artificial and natural devil fruits reveals fundamental differences that go far beyond simple quality control to encompass philosophical questions about the nature of power itself and whether abilities gained through shortcuts and synthetic enhancement can ever achieve the depth and versatility that characterize genuine supernatural gifts earned through worthy character and authentic need. The potential for artificial fruit technology to be improved through additional research creates ethical dilemmas about whether such work should continue, despite its history of causing massive suffering. The possibility that refined manufacturing processes might eventually produce synthetic powers that match natural fruits, forcing difficult decisions about whether ends can justify means, when those means include decades of human experimentation. The therapeutic applications that artificial fruit research might eventually provide through better understanding of how supernatural abilities affect human physiology and consciousness remain largely theoretical due to the ethical constraints that should prevent further experimentation on unwilling subjects, suggesting that legitimate medical benefits might be achievable only through research methods that prioritize patient welfare over scientific advancement. The regulatory frameworks that govern artificial fruit research remain virtually non-existent due to the clandestine nature of most development work and the lack of international bodies with sufficient authority to enforce ethical standards across different jurisdictions, creating environments where researchers can pursue projects that would be immediately banned if conducted through legitimate academic or medical institutions. The underground markets that have developed around artificial fruit distribution demonstrate how synthetic enhancement products create their own criminal economies. Organizations specializing in manufacturing and trafficking defective powers while preying upon individuals desperate enough to risk their lives and sanity for even the remote possibility of gaining supernatural abilities that might improve their circumstances. The psychological addiction that can develop among researchers who become obsessed with perfecting artificial fruit creation represents another form of victimization. Scientists whose careers become defined by pursuit of impossible goals, while their personal relationships and mental health deteriorate under the pressure of working in fields where failure is measured in human lives rather than simple technical setbacks. The international security implications of widespread artificial fruit proliferation include concerns about arms races between nations seeking to develop enhanced military capabilities through synthetic enhancement programs, the potential for artificial fruit technology to destabilize existing power balances, creating diplomatic tensions that could escalate into conflicts affecting millions of people who have no connection to supernatural enhancement. Research. The cultural impact of artificial fruit development extends beyond immediate victims to encompass broader social attitudes toward natural devil fruit users. The association between artificial fruits and suffering, creating suspicion and discrimination that affects individuals whose genuine abilities become suspect due to public awareness of synthetic alternatives and their associated problems. The redemption possibilities that exist for victims of artificial fruit experimentation remain limited by the permanent nature of most synthetic enhancements. Individuals who have been transformed by artificial fruits typically facing lifetime consequences that cannot be reversed through any known medical intervention, forcing them to build entire identities around accommodating limitations that were imposed upon them without their meaningful consent. The legacy of artificial devil fruit research will likely persist long after specific programs have been shut down and their creators brought to justice. The techniques and knowledge developed through decades of human experimentation, creating potential for future abuse that will require constant vigilance to prevent, while the victims of past research continue to serve as living reminders of science's capacity for both miraculous achievement and inconcesionable cruelty. The mysteries that shroud certain devil fruits in veils of legend and speculation speak to powers so profound and dangerous that even their existence has been deliberately obscured by those who understand the catastrophic implications of such abilities falling into the wrong hands. These lost powers and enigmatic fruits represent connections to the deepest secrets of the world's history, their very names whispered in shadows by scholars who dare to research topics that the world government has spent 8 centuries trying to erase from human memory and understanding. The systematic suppression of information about specific devil fruits reveals the extent to which knowledge itself has become a weapon in the ongoing struggle between those who would preserve the current order and those who seek to uncover truths that could fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmic hierarchy. The blank pages in historical records, the missing volumes from ancient libraries, and the convenient deaths of researchers who delve too deeply into forbidden topics all point toward deliberate campaigns to ensure that certain powers remain forever beyond the reach of those who might use them to challenge established authority. The 5 elders who rule from the shadows of Mariehua possess transformative abilities that connect them to creatures from the deepest layers of mythological tradition, their monstrous forms representing powers that predate human civilization, while serving as guardians of secrets that must be protected at any cost. Saint Saturn's spider-like metamorphosis into the Gyuki of Japanese folklore demonstrates capabilities that transcend normal Zoan transformation to encompass reality manipulation on scales that blur the boundaries between supernatural ability and divine intervention. The regenerative properties that characterize Saturn's transformed state operate according to principles that seem to ignore conventional limitations of biological repair and cellular reconstruction. His ability to recover from injuries that would permanently disable or kill normal devil fruit users, suggesting connections to life forces that exist outside the normal cycle of birth, growth, decay, and death. The poisonous secretions that emanate from his spider form create environmental hazards that persist long after his departure, transforming entire regions into toxic wastelands that serve as permanent monuments to his presence. The telepathic communications that link Saturn to his fellow elders reveal networks of consciousness that operate independently of physical proximity or conventional methods of information transfer, their shared awareness creating tactical advantages that transcend individual limitation while raising disturbing questions about the nature of identity and autonomy when multiple beings can share thoughts and experiences in real time. The psychological impact of witnessing Saturn's transformation extends beyond simple fear or revulsion to encompass existential terror that challenges observers' fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality itself. His spider form, representing forces so alien to human experience that prolonged exposure can result in permanent psychological damage that no conventional therapy can address. Mars's command of the Itsumade form connects him to legendary creatures associated with plague, famine, and natural disaster. His bird-like transformation granting flight capabilities while providing access to abilities that can influence weather patterns and atmospheric conditions across vast geographical areas. The wingspan that characterizes his transformed state creates shadows that can eclipse entire cities, his mere presence altering local climate conditions in ways that affect agriculture and ecosystem stability for extended periods. The historical records that mention Itsumade appearances consistently describe them as harbingers of catastrophe and social upheaval, their sightings preceding periods of widespread death and political transformation that reshape entire civilizations. Mars's embodiment of such a creature suggests that his role within the world government involves responsibilities for managing large-scale population control and societal restructuring that operate through methods far more subtle and devastating than conventional military intervention. The vocal abilities that his avian form provides include calls that can be heard across impossible distances while carrying psychological effects that induce despair and hopelessness in those who hear them. His cries serving as weapons that attack the emotional and spiritual foundations of resistance movements while leaving no physical evidence of supernatural intervention. Walkuri's transformation into the Fenrir of Norse mythology represents connection to forces of destruction and chaos that exist at the very foundations of cosmic order, his boar-like form embodying primal violence, while providing access to abilities that can influence the fundamental forces that hold reality together. The tusks that characterize his transformed state can pierce through dimensional barriers and supernatural defenses, his charges creating rifts in space itself that allow for instantaneous travel across vast distances. The seismic effects that accompany Walkuri's movement in transformed state operate on scales that can trigger earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, his footsteps resonating through tectonic plates while creating geological instability that persists for decades after his passage. The environmental destruction that results from his presence serves both tactical and psychological purposes, demonstrating power that exceeds human comprehension while creating lasting reminders of the consequences that await those who challenge the established order. The berserker fury that characterizes his combat approach in transformed state transcends normal aggression to encompass complete abandonment of rational thought and strategic planning, his attacks driven by primal instincts that care nothing for collateral damage or long-term consequences, as long as immediate threats are eliminated through overwhelming application of destructive force. Nushuro's embodiment of the skeletal horse Botis from demonological tradition connects him to powers over death and temporal manipulation that allow him to influence the boundary between life and the afterlife, while providing access to knowledge about future events that comes from existing partially outside the normal flow of time. The flames that emanate from his transformed state burn with temperatures that exceed normal fire while consuming spiritual energy alongside physical matter. The prophetic abilities that his demonic transformation provides include visions of potential futures that exist as probabilities rather than certainties, his understanding of temporal mechanics allowing him to influence the likelihood of specific outcomes through strategic intervention at crucial decision points. This future sight extends beyond simple precognition to encompass comprehensive understanding of cause and effect relationships that span decades or centuries. The psychological horror that accompanies encounters with his transformed state stems from the way his presence makes observers aware of their own mortality and the ultimately temporary nature of all human achievements, his flaming skull serving as constant reminder that death comes for everyone, regardless of power, wealth, or status. Peter's connection to the sandworm form represents the most straightforward of the elder transformations, while potentially being the most devastating in terms of large-scale environmental impact. His ability to burrow through any material while maintaining enormous size, creating capabilities for infrastructure destruction that could cripple entire nations through targeted attacks on foundation systems and underground utilities. The desert-forming effects that follow in the wake of his subterranean passage transform fertile agricultural regions into barren wastelands that require decades to recover their productive capacity. His movement through underground water systems creating droughts that affect entire continental regions, while appearing to result from natural climate variation rather than supernatural intervention. The ancient weapons that exist somewhere in the world represent power on scales that dwarf even the most impressive devil fruit abilities. Their connection to the lost civilization of the Void Century, suggesting technological or supernatural capabilities that could reshape entire continents while influencing global weather patterns and ocean currents in ways that would affect every living creature on the planet. Pluton's designation as a battleship capable of destroying entire islands with single attacks implies weapons, technology that operates according to principles far beyond conventional understanding of physics and engineering, its construction requiring knowledge and materials that no longer exist in the modern world, while depending on energy sources that may be connected to the fundamental forces that power devil fruit abilities themselves. Poseidon's identity as a person, rather than a device, reveals how certain individuals can serve as living weapons whose abilities transcend normal classification systems. The current Poseidon's power to command sea kings, creating tactical capabilities that could control maritime, trade, and transportation throughout the world, while providing military advantages that would make conventional naval forces completely obsolete. Uranus remains the most mysterious of the ancient weapons, its very existence questioned by scholars who debate whether references in historical records describe a real device or mythological symbol, representing concepts too complex for direct description. The theories that connect Uranus to weather control or celestial manipulation suggest power that could influence the planet's orbit or relationship to other astronomical bodies. The connection between devil fruits and the ancient weapons implies shared origins in scientific or supernatural research that was conducted during the Void Century. The systematic suppression of information about both topics suggesting that knowledge of one might provide insights into the other, while potentially revealing secrets that the world government considers too dangerous for public awareness. The will of D that appears in certain bloodlines creates genetic or spiritual connections to the lost history that the world government works tirelessly to suppress. Individuals carrying this initial, often possessing intuitive understanding of hidden truths, while displaying natural immunity to certain forms of supernatural influence and mental manipulation. The relationship between D carriers and devil fruit powers suggests selective compatibility that goes beyond random chance, certain fruits appearing to seek out specific bloodlines while avoiding others in patterns that imply conscious choice or predetermined destiny rather than mere coincidence in fruit selection and consumption. The poneglyphs that preserve fragments of lost history contain references to devil fruit powers that no longer exist in the modern world. Their descriptions of abilities that sound impossible, even by supernatural standards, suggesting that the full scope of what devil fruits could achieve has been deliberately limited through systematic destruction of the most dangerous varieties. The research conducted by Vegapunk into devil fruit mechanics reveals scientific principles that challenge conventional understanding of how supernatural abilities interface with physical reality. His discoveries about fruit transmission and artificial creation, pointing toward underlying systems that operate according to rules far more complex than simple magic or unexplained phenomena. The dreams that certain devil fruit users experience suggest connections to collective unconscious or inherited memories that span centuries. Their visions of events from the Void Century providing glimpses into historical truths that official records have been altered to conceal, while offering insights into the original purposes for which certain fruits were created. The geographical distribution of certain devil fruit discoveries follows patterns that correlate with ancient civilizations and archaeological sites associated with the Void Century, suggesting that some fruits have been deliberately hidden or preserved in locations that would eventually be discovered by individuals deemed worthy of their power through tests of character and determination. The linguistic analysis of devil fruit names reveals etymological connections to ancient languages that predate recorded history, their terminology suggesting cultural and scientific exchange between civilizations that possessed far more sophisticated understanding of supernatural forces than anything that exists in the contemporary world. The cyclical nature of certain devil fruit appearances in historical records implies reincarnation or recycling systems that ensure important abilities return to the world when they are most needed, the timing of such reappearances often coinciding with periods of political upheaval and social transformation that require extraordinary individuals to guide humanity through critical transitions. The ultimate truth about devil fruits and their connection to the world's hidden history may prove more revolutionary than any political movement or military conquest. Knowledge of their true nature, potentially providing humanity with understanding and capabilities that could transcend every limitation that currently constrains civilization, while opening possibilities for evolution and advancement that exceed even the most optimistic visions of future potential. The apex of devil fruit mastery reveals itself not merely through overwhelming destructive capability, but through the profound transformation that occurs when ultimate power intersects with the complex psychology of individuals who must bear responsibilities that extend far beyond personal ambition to encompass the fate of entire civilizations. The strongest devil fruit wielders in existence operate on scales where their emotional states can trigger natural disasters. Their decisions can reshape international politics, and their mere presence can inspire or terrify millions of people who will never meet them, but whose lives remain forever influenced by the legends that surround such transcendent figures. The isolation that accompanies supreme power creates psychological challenges that few human beings could endure without fundamental changes to their personality and worldview. The knowledge that one possesses the strength to destroy nations or reshape continents carrying burdens of responsibility that can crush even the strongest spirits if not properly managed through philosophical frameworks that provide meaning and purpose beyond mere acquisition of greater strength. The loneliness of existing as someone whose capabilities place them beyond normal human experience often proves more devastating than any external enemy could ever achieve through conventional forms of attack. Edward Newgate's mastery of the Gura Gura no Mi represented the pinnacle of how destructive power could be tempered by wisdom and channeled toward purposes that transcended personal ambition to serve ideals larger than individual glory or conquest. His ability to create earthquakes and tsunamis with casual gestures carried the perpetual weight of knowing that moments of anger or carelessness could result in geological catastrophes that would claim innocent lives across entire regions, forcing him to develop emotional discipline that matched his physical capabilities. The family that Whitebeard created among his crew members demonstrated how ultimate strength could serve protective rather than predatory purposes, his power becoming shield rather than sword when applied to safeguarding those he considered worthy of his care and devotion. The sons who sailed under his flag found in him not just military leadership but paternal guidance that helped them develop their own abilities while providing them with examples of how strength should be wielded by those who understood its true purpose and cost. The philosophical framework that guided Whitebeard's approach to his overwhelming capabilities reflected decades of contemplation about the relationship between power and responsibility. His understanding that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when destruction served justice and when it merely satisfied personal grievance or wounded pride. The restraint he demonstrated during conflicts revealed depths of character that his enemies often failed to recognize until too late. The death that eventually claimed the world's strongest man provided a final demonstration of how even the most formidable abilities remain subject to the fundamental limitations of human mortality, his passing serving as a reminder that no amount of supernatural power can ultimately prevail against time and the accumulated weight of injuries sustained in service of protecting others. The legacy he left behind transcended any individual technique or combat capability to encompass the example he provided of how ultimate power could be exercised with honor and compassion. Kaido's command of his Azure Dragon transformation showcases how supreme physical capabilities can become both blessing and curse when wielded by someone whose understanding of strength remains limited to its applications for domination and control rather than protection and growth. His ability to level mountains with his presence and command weather phenomena through emotional states grants him tactical advantages that few opponents could hope to match. Yet these same abilities isolate him within a realm of power where genuine challenges and meaningful relationships become increasingly rare. The philosophical emptiness that characterizes Kaido's approach to his dragon form reveals how raw strength without deeper purpose eventually becomes its own form of prison, his desperate search for worthy opponents speaking to the profound loneliness that accompanies existence as someone whose capabilities place him beyond normal human experience while providing no framework for finding meaning or satisfaction through achievements that extend beyond mere demonstrations of superior force. The suicidal tendencies that have defined much of Kaido's recent history reflect the psychological consequences of possessing power so overwhelming that life loses its capacity to provide genuine surprise, challenge, or growth. His repeated attempts at self-destruction, representing not just boredom but existential despair, at finding himself trapped within abilities that have elevated him beyond human limitation, while failing to provide the sense of purpose and connection that make existence meaningful. The Beast Pirates organization that operates under Kaido's leadership demonstrates how supreme individual power can create systems built upon fear and submission rather than loyalty and mutual respect, his strength serving as foundation for hierarchies that depend entirely upon his continued dominance, while providing no mechanisms for genuine leadership development or organizational growth beyond simple expansion through conquest and intimidation. Charlotte Linlin's mastery of the Soru Soru no Mi reveals how the ability to manipulate souls and extract life essence can corrupt even maternal instincts when applied without moral constraints or philosophical framework that recognizes the inherent worth of other conscious beings. Her power to steal years of life from those who fear her while creating homies from inanimate objects grants her capabilities that blur the boundaries between creation and destruction, life and death, love and tyranny, in ways that would challenge the sanity of most individuals. The psychological disorders that characterize Big Mom's approach to her soul-based abilities reflect the devastating impact that unlimited power can have on mental stability when wielded by someone whose childhood trauma, emotional needs remain unresolved despite decades of trauma, supernatural capability, and political authority. Her eating disorders and violent mood swings demonstrate how even ultimate strength cannot address underlying psychological wounds that require healing rather than power as their appropriate treatment. The Toto Land kingdom that Big Mom created through her soul manipulation serves as physical manifestation of her distorted understanding of family and community, her homies providing companionship and loyalty that exists only because she has forced consciousness into objects that have no choice but to serve her desires, while maintaining the illusion of genuine relationship and emotional connection. The children who serve as both heirs and tools within Big Mom's organization illustrate how supreme power can corrupt even the most fundamental human relationships when strength becomes substitute for empathy and understanding. Her treatment of her offspring revealing how supernatural abilities can enable forms of abuse that transcend normal parental dysfunction to encompass exploitation that operates on generational scales. Marshall D. Teach's pursuit of multiple devil fruit abilities represents perhaps the most ambitious attempt ever recorded to accumulate ultimate power through systematic acquisition rather than natural development. His consumption of both the Yami Yami no Mi and Gura Gura no Mi, creating unprecedented combinations of destructive capability, while demonstrating the risks that accompany attempts to transcend normal limitations through artificial enhancement rather than earned growth. The darkness-based abilities that serve as foundation for Blackbeard's power philosophy operate according to principles that invert conventional understanding of devil fruit mastery. His gravitational manipulation and power nullification, creating tactical advantages that depend upon consuming and destroying, rather than creating and protecting. The pain amplification that accompanies his darkness transformation serves as constant reminder of the prices that must be paid for power acquired through shortcuts rather than legitimate development. The crew that Blackbeard has assembled through his pursuit of ultimate strength reflects his fundamental misunderstanding of what makes individuals truly formidable. His focus on collecting devil fruit users rather than developing genuine loyalty and mutual respect, creating an organization held together by fear and greed rather than shared purpose or authentic camaraderie. The historical parallels between Blackbeard's approach to power accumulation and the methods employed by previous tyrants and conquerors suggest patterns of corruption that transcend individual psychology to encompass broader themes about how strength without wisdom inevitably leads to destruction of both the wielder and everyone unfortunate enough to be caught within their sphere of influence. The Marine admirals who serve as the world government's ultimate military authority demonstrate how supreme devil fruit abilities can be channeled through institutional frameworks that provide structure and purpose while constraining individual power within systems of accountability and collective decision-making. Their Logia transformations grant them capabilities that rival the Four Emperors, while their training and philosophical development help them avoid some of the psychological pitfalls that often accompany ultimate individual strength. Sakazuki's magma-based abilities serve as perfect expression of his absolute justice philosophy, his power to melt through virtually any defense, reflecting his unwillingness to accept compromise or negotiation when confronting what he perceives as threats to world stability and moral order. The environmental destruction that follows his battles serves both practical and symbolic purposes, demonstrating the consequences that await those who challenge the system he has dedicated his life to preserving and strengthening. Kuzan's ice-based powers provide interesting contrast to his colleague's approach, his abilities serving preservation and reflection, rather than immediate destruction, while creating opportunities for tactical flexibility and strategic thinking that pure offensive capability could never achieve. The philosophical distance that characterizes his lazy justice reflects understanding that some problems require patience and careful consideration rather than immediate overwhelming response. Borsellino's light-speed capabilities grant him tactical advantages that approach omnipresence within combat situations, while his casual attitude towards such incredible power demonstrates how institutional training, Philosophical development can help individuals maintain psychological stability despite possessing abilities that could easily corrupt less prepared personalities. The Revolutionary Army leadership represents alternative approaches to channeling ultimate power toward purposes that transcend individual ambition, while serving ideological goals that challenge existing systems rather than preserving them. Their abilities reflect their commitment to transformation and liberation rather than control and domination, suggesting that philosophical framework may be more important than raw capability in determining how supreme power affects both wielders and those influenced by their actions. Dragon's weather manipulation capabilities operate on scales that can influence entire regional climate systems, while his commitment to revolutionary ideals provides moral framework that prevents such power from becoming tool for personal aggrandizement rather than social transformation. The measured approach he takes to deploying his abilities reflects understanding that ultimate power carries ultimate responsibility for consequences that extend far beyond immediate tactical objectives. The balance that must be maintained between individual capability and collective purpose becomes increasingly crucial as Devil Fruit abilities approach their ultimate expressions. The most powerful users requiring support systems and philosophical frameworks that help them avoid the isolation and corruption that historically accompany transcendent strength when wielded without appropriate wisdom and moral guidance. The legacy that each ultimate Devil Fruit user creates through their approach to supreme power influences how future generations understand the relationship between strength and responsibility, their choices and actions shaping cultural expectations about whether transcendent abilities represent opportunities for service or temptations toward tyranny and self-destruction. The psychological preparation required for wielding ultimate power remains largely unexplored territory within most training systems. The focus on technical mastery and combat effectiveness, often neglecting the emotional and philosophical development that proves essential for maintaining sanity and moral clarity. When one's abilities begin to operate on scales that affect entire civilizations rather than just individual conflicts, the ultimate test of supreme Devil Fruit mastery lies not in the ability to destroy one's enemies, but in the wisdom to know when such destruction serves higher purposes and when it merely satisfies personal desires for dominance and control. The greatest users throughout history being remembered not for their raw strength, but for their understanding of how that strength could serve ideals and people worthy of such extraordinary sacrifice and dedication. The phenomenon of Devil Fruit awakening represents the ultimate synthesis between human consciousness and supernatural power, a transcendent state where the boundaries between user and ability dissolve completely to create something that exceeds the sum of its individual components. This transformation extends far beyond simple technical mastery or increased destructive capability to encompass fundamental changes in how the awakened individual perceives reality itself, their enhanced abilities serving as extensions of philosophical and spiritual evolution that has reached levels where conventional limitations cease to apply entirely. The journey toward awakening cannot be achieved through training or determination alone, but requires a profound integration of personal identity with the essential nature of one's Devil Fruit power, a process that often spans decades of careful cultivation and may never be completed by users who fail to achieve the necessary depth of self-understanding and spiritual maturity. The awakened state demands complete acceptance of both the gifts and burdens that come with transcendent power, while maintaining the emotional equilibrium necessary to wield such abilities without losing connection to the fundamental humanity that prevents corruption and moral decay. Don Quixote do Flamingo's awakening of the Ito Ito no Mi demonstrated how environmental manipulation could elevate string-based powers from personal combat techniques to comprehensive battlefield control that transforms entire landscapes according to the user's strategic preferences and psychological state. His ability to convert buildings, streets, and even the ground itself into threads under his command creates tactical advantages that transcend normal spatial limitations, while providing defensive and offensive capabilities that adapt instantly to whatever challenges present themselves during extended conflicts. The psychological implications of possessing awakened abilities that can reshape one's surroundings speak to deeper themes about the relationship between internal consciousness and external reality, suggesting that the most profound devil fruit powers operate by extending the user's will directly into the physical world, rather than simply manipulating matter through supernatural force. Doflamingo's string awakening allows him to impose his twisted worldview upon entire cities, transforming urban environments into extensions of his manipulative personality, while creating architectural manifestations of his psychological need to control and dominate everything within his sphere of influence. The birdcage technique, that represents the pinnacle of Doflamingo's awakened abilities, serves as perfect metaphor for how transcendent power can be used to trap entire populations within systems of control that appear inescapable, while gradually tightening their constraints until submission becomes the only option for survival. The seemingly infinite durability of his awakened strings suggests that environmental manipulation through devil fruit awakening operates according to principles that transcend normal material limitations, creating constructs that exist partially outside conventional physical law. The energy requirements for maintaining such extensive environmental control over extended periods demonstrate how awakened abilities demand not just technical skill, but extraordinary reserves of willpower and concentration. The mental strain of simultaneously managing thousands of individual thread constructs while coordinating complex tactical operations, pushing even the most experienced users toward their absolute limits of endurance and focus. Charlotte Katakuri's awakened Mochi Mochi no Mi showcases how environmental transformation can serve defensive and adaptive purposes rather than purely offensive applications. His ability to convert his surroundings into mochi paste, providing tactical flexibility that allows him to reshape battlefield conditions in real time, according to whatever advantages each moment of combat demands. The fluid nature of his awakened environment creates opportunities for creative problem-solving that rigid terrain could never accommodate, while providing absorption and deflection capabilities that conventional defensive techniques could never match. The perfect synchronization that Katakuri achieves between his awakened abilities and his advanced observation haki creates combat capabilities that approach precognition, his power to see potential futures combining with environmental control to create scenarios where opponents find themselves trapped within tactical situations that have been prepared and optimized before they even begin their attacks. This integration of different supernatural abilities represents the kind of comprehensive mastery that characterizes the most advanced devil fruit users. The philosophical framework that guides Katakuri's approach to his awakened powers reflects his commitment to perfection and his understanding that true strength lies not just in raw capability, but in the precision and elegance with which that capability is applied to achieve desired outcomes, with minimum waste of energy or unnecessary collateral damage. His mochi environment becomes extension of his personality, providing both protection for those he values while creating overwhelming challenges for anyone who threatens his family or territory. The psychological burden of maintaining perfect performance standards while wielding awakened abilities creates internal pressures that few individuals could sustain over extended periods. Katakuri's eventual acceptance of his own imperfections during his battle with Luffy, representing crucial character development that allows him to access even greater levels of power through authentic self-expression rather than rigid adherence to artificial standards of flawless execution. Trafalgar Law's expanding mastery of the Oppop no Mi suggests awakening potential that could revolutionize surgical medicine and spatial manipulation on scales that transcend individual treatment to encompass comprehensive healthcare solutions for entire populations affected by diseases or injuries that conventional medicine cannot address effectively. The precision control he demonstrates over his room abilities indicates development toward awakened states that might allow permanent beneficial modifications to human physiology and consciousness. The ethical implications of possessing awakened surgical abilities that could reshape human nature itself create moral dilemmas that no existing philosophical framework has been designed to address adequately. Law's power to manipulate life and death through supernatural medical intervention, raising questions about appropriate limits of therapeutic intervention, and the responsibilities that accompany abilities to fundamentally alter what it means to be human. The strategic applications of awakened surgical powers extend beyond medical treatment to encompass comprehensive battlefield control and tactical coordination that could revolutionize military medicine while providing commanders with capabilities for force, multiplication, and casualty management that conventional logistics could never achieve through normal supply and communication systems. The potential for Law's abilities to serve research and educational purposes through direct manipulation of consciousness and memory could advance human knowledge at unprecedented rates if applied to information, transfer, and skill development rather than purely combat and medical applications, suggesting peaceful uses for awakened powers that remain largely unexplored due to the conflict-focused context in which most such abilities are discovered and developed. Eustace Kidd's magnetic awakening demonstrates how environmental manipulation can extend beyond simple attraction and repulsion to encompass comprehensive control over metallic objects throughout vast areas. His ability to create complex mechanical constructs from battlefield salvage, while simultaneously stripping enemies of their metallic equipment and weapons, providing tactical advantages that grow stronger in proportion to the industrial development and technological sophistication of the surrounding environment. The engineering creativity that awakened magnetic powers enable allows for construction and manufacturing applications that could revolutionize infrastructure development and technological advancement if applied to peaceful construction projects rather than military conflicts. Kidd's ability to manipulate metal at molecular levels, potentially providing solutions to material science challenges that conventional techniques cannot address effectively. The psychological transformation that accompanies awakened magnetic abilities speaks to deeper themes about the relationship between individual will and technological environment, suggesting that the most advanced Devil Fruit users develop intuitive understanding of complex systems and mechanical relationships that allows them to interface directly with industrial civilization rather than simply existing within it. As passive consumers of manufactured products, the environmental implications of large-scale magnetic manipulation include potential disruption of electronic systems and navigational equipment across entire regions. Awakened magnetic users potentially capable of creating technological dead zones where modern communication and transportation systems cease to function properly, while providing advantages to individuals and organizations that depend on more primitive but reliable mechanical technologies. Monkey D., Luffy's awakening of his true Nika powers, represents perhaps the most philosophically significant transformation in recorded history. His Gear 5th abilities, operating according to principles that transcend conventional understanding of what devil fruit capabilities should be able to accomplish within the constraints of physical law and rational expectation. The reality manipulation that characterizes his awakened state suggests connections to forces that exist beyond normal supernatural abilities to encompass direct interface with the fundamental nature of existence itself. The liberation theme that defines Luffy's awakened abilities extends beyond personal enhancement to encompass environmental transformation that frees entire regions from oppressive conditions, while providing hope and inspiration to populations that have lost faith in the possibility of positive change through individual action. His rubber properties spreading to affect his surroundings create tactical possibilities that seem limited only by his imagination and emotional state, rather than any inherent restrictions within his devil fruit powers. The psychological impact of witnessing Luffy's awakened abilities operates on levels that exceed normal inspiration or intimidation to encompass spiritual transformation in observers who recognize that they are seeing proof that seemingly impossible dreams can become reality when supported by sufficient determination and moral clarity. The laughter that accompanies his Gear 5th transformation serves as weapon against despair while providing healing for psychological wounds that conventional therapy could never address. The historical implications of Luffy's awakening connecting him to the legendary sun god Nika suggest that certain devil fruit abilities serve as links to ancient powers and forgotten civilizations that possessed understanding of reality's malleable nature. His transformation, potentially representing the return of capabilities that were deliberately suppressed to prevent challenges to systems of control that depend upon populations accepting limitation as inevitable rather than temporary. The process of achieving devil fruit awakening appears to require not just mastery of technique, but fundamental integration of personal identity with the essential nature of one's abilities. Users needing to accept both the positive and negative aspects of their powers, while maintaining emotional equilibrium that prevents corruption or loss of connection to the values and relationships that provide meaning and purpose beyond mere demonstration of supernatural capability. The environmental effects that characterize most awakened abilities suggest that the highest levels of devil fruit mastery involve transcending the boundaries between internal power and external reality. Advanced users learning to treat their surroundings as extensions of their consciousness, rather than separate entities that must be manipulated through force or coercion. The psychological preparation required for handling awakened abilities includes development of philosophical frameworks that can provide meaning and direction for powers that operate beyond normal human comprehension. Users needing spiritual and emotional foundations strong enough to support responsibilities that extend far beyond individual concerns to encompass the welfare of entire communities and civilizations. The collaborative potential of multiple awakened users working together remains largely unexplored territory, suggesting possibilities for combined environmental manipulation and reality alteration that could reshape entire continents while providing solutions to global challenges that no conventional technology or political system could address through normal means. The legacy that awakened devil fruit users create through their approach to transcendent power influences how future generations understand the relationship between individual development and collective benefit, their choices about how to apply reality-altering abilities, shaping cultural expectations about whether ultimate power serves evolution or destruction. The training methodologies required for achieving awakening remain mysterious and largely individual rather than systematic, suggesting that the path to transcendent ability cannot be standardized or mass-produced, but must be discovered through personal journey that integrates combat skills with spiritual development and philosophical understanding. The ultimate implications of Devil Fruit Awakening for human civilization include possibilities for transcending current limitations of mortality, scarcity, and conflict through direct manipulation of the fundamental forces that govern existence, advanced users potentially gaining access to capabilities that could solve every major challenge facing society, if applied with appropriate wisdom and moral restraint. The responsibility that comes with awakened abilities extends beyond immediate tactical applications to encompass stewardship of power that could reshape reality itself according to the user's understanding of what existence should become, making character development and ethical training as important as technical mastery in determining whether such capabilities serve beneficial or destructive purposes in the ongoing evolution of human potential. As our journey through the complete catalogue of Devil Fruit powers draws to a close, we're reminded that each of these mystical treasures represents more than mere abilities. They are manifestations of human potential itself, reflections of our deepest desires, fears, and dreams made manifest through mysterious forces that predate recorded history. From the humblest paramecia that grants simple body modification to the legendary mythical zoans that connect their users to gods and legends, every devil fruit serves as a reminder that power without purpose is merely destruction, while purpose without power remains forever unfulfilled. The greatest wielders throughout history have understood this balance, using their gifts not merely for personal gain but to protect what they hold dear and fight for the world they wish to create. The sea that curses devil fruit users with weakness also connects all islands, all dreams, and all adventures into one vast tapestry of possibility. Rest now, gentle dreamer, knowing that somewhere on these endless waters, new devil fruits are waiting to be discovered, new powers are awakening, and new legends are being born from the eternal dance between human ambition and the mysterious forces that shape our world.